you should go ahead and admit everybody here because they're all going to freak out.
One sec. Here we go.
I'm gonna have to swivel this between.
Yeah.
Does one of you guys want to sit in the middle? No.
Wow. Wow. Look at all this.
Everybody.
Oh,
People. Hello.
Oh my God.
I don't see us.
Auntie Mary. Hey.
Auntie Mary. Hello.
Mary.
There. Auntie Mary.
Oh, maybe not. No, maybe not.
Yeah.
Auntie Mary, we're going to descend on you one of these days.
What's the quarantine?
well, please do.
Video.
I actually don't know whether I have audio on or not. Hi, John.
Hello, Mary.
Hi, John.
Wow. Welcome to the 21st century here. This is amazing.
No,
I'm amazed I did this.
John Amlin, I think.
Yes, it is John
John
Allen.
Allen.
Hey, John.
Hi, Lynette.
Hey, Pink. You look
Where are you? I hear your voice. Where are you?
Who's saying hi?
I'm saying hi. It's me.
Oh,
Auntie.
hey, Anthea. Good to see you.
I hear you're going by Fred now.
No, I'm not sure how that got onto the email.
Okay.
I think-
Professional setting, right, Bink? In a professional setting, you're Fred.
Yeah.
Hey,
Oh,
Susan, we
Jake.
can't see you.
Oh, there's Tally.
Look, Tally. There's Tally.
John, it's good to see your face.
It's
Good to see you too, Alan.
great to see you too, except I can't see you.
Why not?
What?
No, Susan.
Uncle John, do you have it on everybody in a small tile?
Oh, that's us.
There's
Jeffrey.
I can see everybody. I can see me.
Yep, you're good. You're good.
Paul.
Ah,
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
well,
Hello, hey.
Uncle
Yes,
Paul.
Anna, that's-
Well, Emily told me to be on.
we can't
Sorry,
see.
Carol.
This is Jeff and Carol. We can't see ourselves.
Yeah.
So what?
No, I
let's
can't.
see.
Down in the left-hand corner is your video button.
Where
Okay,
is
start
quiet?
video. Try that. Click it again.
Okay, I don't want to.
Susan, is that your dog barking?
Oh,
So let's have everybody mute themselves for a second and let's.
Oh, it's so sad.
Hey, everybody. So I muted all of you.
Power.
Hey, somebody's not muted. How'd that happen? Mute all. You can unmute yourself if you want to, but we're just gonna do it like this, so that it's not all chaos. Oh, there's a couple more people waiting to join, so I'm gonna admit them.
Okay.
And then we'll get started.
So there's Will and Marilyn. Hello. And then we're still trying to figure out, Bink, about Susan's camera. So I wonder if there's.
Susan, if you want, you can try to give me a call and I can help you figure it out. Let me put my phone number in the chat.
In the chat. And then Jeff, no camera, but possible because of where he's located. Oh, there we go. Susan, you're up. We can see you.
Oh, and how'd she do that? I wonder.
Nice.
Bottom left. Now there we go.
Got it. Okay. Hey, Susan, since you're unmuted, is Jeff on the road or?
No, he's at
No.
Tally. You saw Tally. That's his granddaughter. So he's at her house.
No,
No, we're at our house.
No, we're
Oh,
not.
you're not. Okay. They were.
No, for some reason, whenever I try to start a video, it just says that cannot start video, fail to start the video camera. Please select another video camera
Just use
in
our iPad.
settings.
Hmm.
So we might switch to our iPad.
Okay. You could also, Jeff, try and log out and log back in again.
Sure that.
Yeah.
As I've been through that myself, check on your function keys up above. You'll see a camera, F8 with a little slash through it. That's always been what's nailed me. So, because I got the same message, look for a different camera. Oh, I got a different. Anyway, check the function key F8 If you've got the little camera picture with a slash through it, push that. That might get you loud.
Bink, your
Yes.
mom and dad, are they,
I don't know what's going on.
What century are they in?
Let me see. Oh, there's more people. There we go. More people in the waiting
Emily.
room.
They might be in the Gandalf section.
somewhere in Middle Earth?
There's see Karen.
Hello.
Hi, Karen.
Goodness. It's most
No,
amazing.
it failed again. So we'll switch to our iPad. Carol has been in meetings with the iPad and it's worked. So we just tried to do it on our PC. We'll on again in a minute here.
Hey, Will, no snarky comments in the chat room about lame Zoom abilities. I saw that.
No snark, but real excitement here.
Where's the chat room?
We're doing better than some of my coworkers in their 20s. So it's, yeah, it's not
Okay.
necessarily an age
There's
thing.
Evan and Malia. Hello.
Can you make the font
You're,
bigger?
Evan, you're pretty backlit. Can't see you at all. Any way to light you up a little bit?
Who's that?
Evan,
Oh, okay. I'm afraid I'm too backlit, but the sun's going down. That's what I'm,
no, you're fine, Sue.
okay, good.
Okay, well, oh, there's Carl
Ooh,
with a cat, a huge cat. Wow.
Emma says she's coming. I'm
Um,
coming.
hey, John.
Emma,
Sorry. We need bigger font so I can see. Yeah,
He needs a bigger screen.
need a really big screen. Oh my
Will,
God.
this is really fun. The last time I saw you, we were in Paris together.
where?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah.
You forgot having tea with me in Paris.
Yeah.
How could you forget?
Well,
I think that it's worth waiting a couple more minutes for Charlie and Emma to come in.
Hi, Lynette.
hi.
There she is. Hi, Lynette. That looks like a great backdrop for the real party next year.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm already working on the wine supply.
Look at Lori. Hi, Lori. Hi, Lori. Oh, good to see you.
Eric, you guys are up at Volcano, yeah? Or somewhere. Up at Volcano. That's awesome. Nice.
Oh.
There you go.
There we go.
Oh, yeah. I think
That's
that's the John's property.
Okay.
Deep in the rainforest up here.
Oh, there we go.
That.
There's Kelohi and there's Emma. Okay.
I'm looking for.
Where's Kealohi? Where is she?
Bink, are you calling your dad or you what? You're muted.
They're having trouble logging in, they said.
Oh boy. Okay. Is Walt with them?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Think you want to walk them through it?
No.
Wog knows how.
Wong's there.
Yeah, I don't know if their internet is acting up or what.
It's okay. It's okay.
Hi, Sunshine. Hi, puppy girl.
Just in case you move around.
Emma, are you there? Muted right now.
Is Alika guys joining in?
Hey, Missy.
Hi. Who said
Hi.
that?
Aaron.
Karen, hi.
Hi, Missy. It's just me and my dogs.
Susan, did you bring your Coors for us?
My what?
Coors?
Oh, I know. I used to do that. Remember the Pan Am agents used to steal a couple of cans out of cargo?
Oh, yes, we remember.
I have a tenant right now who works for a company who work for Coors Tech because they did other things, the Coors family.
At least you didn't bring us Corona then.
I know.
The answer is
But I'm working on the wine for next year, let me tell you. I'm BFFs with Eleanor and Francis Ford Coppola now. I joined their wine club. And I'm working on a big shipment.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay, there.
Oh, yo, Emma,
Oh, there's Jeffrey and Carol.
what's up?
I see them now.
Hey, hi.
We got on. Or is we still here? Hello, everybody.
Yeah, there you are. You're good. You and I have the same background picture, I think.
There.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Evan, you know, we seriously can't see your face. At least you need a flashlight, like to be shining up in your face.
Maybe.
Yeah, not going to happen,
Yeah.
unfortunately. We're trying to work on it,
Okay.
but that's okay. I'm not really worth looking at anyway.
It's not
Maybe
Oh, there's Emmylou.
in better light.
Hi, honey.
Oh my gosh, there's so much
Well,
regular.
lit person yet.
Can you arrange everybody like gray hair down to not
I know.
alphabetical order or something? I don't know.
Well, there's and Bianca with hardly any hair.
Yes, I knew
There we
that.
go.
That's
We
the
all started
youngest
out that way, I
Reppun there.
think.
That's the receding hairline. We'll put you there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually pretty special, Jeff, that Bianca is fifth generation or fourth generation.
Which would be? Fourth.
One,
No.
two,
Fifth. You're right. Fifth.
generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's epic. And how old is she?
She
1
is
month.
a little over a month.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. 100 years and a month.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
why don't we, since Charlie and Vivian and Wog are still trying to get in.
Oh,
there-
wait, here they come.
Okay. All right.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
Wait for Kealohi to turn on her camera.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay! Hi, Vivian. Charlie. Oh my goodness. Hi, guys. Hey.
Awesome.
So many people.
Wow, guys, you have in.
Hi, Mary. She's muted.
Hello, okay.
About Seth.
Somebody's got a.
Two phones on the same time. Okay, Uncle Josh, you're the only one who's unmuted right now.
All right, everybody. So everybody is on mute right now, so I'm going to talk for a little while. So this is so special. Welcome everybody to this celebration of 100 years in Hawaii. I'm super stoked that we could all get together, you know, despite the pandemic. And as you guys know, 1920 was really the last year that the Spanish flu was still raging in Hawaii. And it really sort of died out towards the end of the year. So 100 years later, you know, here in the middle of this pandemic, we're gathering together, and it's pretty awesome that we have the technology to do it. And big super credit to you for having that cool head and saying that really this meeting should be a virtual meeting and not an in-person meeting. We'll celebrate the 100th in person a year from now on August 8th.
More paranoia than anything else.
Right, exactly. So, so we thought that we would start with. So let me just check real quick. Eric, you guys over there, did Tommy and Marilyn, were they gonna check in? Were they gonna do any kind of song or anything?
Mom's in.
Oh, there you are. Oh, sorry, that's right. Marilyn.
Will
I forgot. So Marilyn, you're going to play, right? Okay, that's terrific. So we're gonna start with a song, and then Charlie is going to read a poem, and that'll be sort of the dedication and the blessing of this event. And then Glenn has put together a presentation, a PowerPoint, and he's going to walk us through that presentation. It's sort of it's a really cool thing. I've already seen it about the history of the family. in Hawaii in the 100 years. And then we'll start into the presentation of the artifacts of family history. And I'm happy to go first. I'll put myself up there and do my little presentation of the thing that I prepared for this moment. The way that we figured we would do it technically is that everybody will remain on mute while somebody is presenting, and then we'll open up all the microphones after the presentation is over. And if we have a moment to yada yada and chime in and make comments or tell stories, we'll do that, and then we'll mute everybody and go into the next presentation. So that's kind of the format for today. Anytime anybody wants to make a toast, just raise your hand and we'll make sure that you have an opportunity to make a toast. We are recording this session, which is really fun. And then Bink, there was something else that I needed to remind everybody about. What was it as we go through?
Just if you want, you can put comments or questions in the chat, and Jane is going to keep track of those and make sure that they get asked or aired.
So the chat is open for anybody who wants to make comments. You can have a side conversation, and so we can have fun with that. Okay.
Okay, one quick question. Does everyone know where the chat is? If you go to the bottom, there's a little icon that says chat, and it'll bring up a screen on the right. And you can either address your comment to everyone, or you can select from the little blue drop down a specific person to send your comment to.
Right.
Anyway, I'll only see them if you address them to me or to everyone.
I especially like Will's comment.
Right.
That's him.
Everybody working on Zoom. Okay, I'll mute myself now.
So Marilyn and Will and Mahina there, we're going to start the proceedings with music, as is completely appropriate. So I'm going to mute myself, and you guys, Will, can.
Hello, everybody.
Aloha. So we're going to sing Molokai Nui Ahina.
Oh, why are you singing?
Well, it's a song about Molokai, and we know how special a place that was for the Reppun boys, most of them, and Missy and Fred and Jean. So here we go. I'll do
Thank you, everybody, for that round of applause.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Mahina. Thank you, Marilyn. Appreciate it. Before we have Charlie do his poem, I just want to alert everybody at the very top, if you click on speaker view, the person who's speaking ends up in the big frame at the top. So when Charlie's doing the poem, it might be easier to see him. And when the participants are presenting their artifacts or their history, speaker view might be helpful. Okay, Charlie, you're on deck.
Hey, Dad. If you don't have it ready, I have it here.
Yeah, you do it.
You want to do it?
No, I couldn't find that copy of it. So you do it.
Oh, okay. Okay. This is from this book, 1970, reprinted 2002. And there's the author. Okay. The Tree and the House by the Bay. It was huge and seemed dead, yet the old monkey pod laughed as our axes bit and sang, for days into weeks. You are so small and my heart is so deep. The trees fell, the house grew, with a glass front unbroken by baseballs, curses, or Kona winds. The bay is still our front yard. The stump has new shoots. December 1976.
Wow, that was awesome, Bing. Thank you. And I had just graduated from high school a few months before.
I don't know if you can see, but there it is across the driveway.
Thank you, Jane.
The neighbors are home, so I might not actually walk in the house, but.
That's awesome. Okay, so Glenn, you're on deck here, and Jane. And it's when Jane goes into screen share, it's gonna cause all of your screens to go into full screen view, which is totally normal, and it'll last that way all the way through the presentation.
Okay, I'm gonna just, Dad, okay, so I'll hit the buttons, you tell me when.
Okay. Well, what I wanted to do is try to get an immigration to Hawaii where Emily, Carl, Eric, and Frederick went during their travels to Hawaii. But what I would like you to do, first of all, is estimate, just write it down, estimate how many miles they traveled from Tirian to Hawaii. I will tell you what the actual mileage is at the end, and we'll see who got closest. But just on a guess, try to figure out how far it was from Tirian to Honolulu. Okay, we'll start.
Okay. Oh, crap. Sorry about that, everybody.
Okay, so first of all, to give you an idea of what I use, Google Maps, and this is from Moscow to Chiryansky, which is 985 miles. It's actually 1,500 kilometers. But this was on February 8th, 1913, and this is when Carl was assigned or took over the hospital in Tirian. In Tirian, we found these photos of Emily and Fritz, who he was known as at the time, and the servants that were working. And if you remember Emily's letters talking about the servants and how undependable or drunk they were quite frequently.
Which ones are they, Dad? Do you know? Are they? We think that they're the ones in the front.
No, they're in the front is Emily holding Fritz. Okay. And she also described her farmyard, how many ducks, geese, all kinds of critters, and one of the servants is in the back right corner. Dunya was the nurse who took care of the boys. And this photo was taken in August 1916. So Fritz had a lot of hair. Eric was combed down.
He was Baps.
Baps. Okay. Just to give you an idea, this is Tyrion today in 2020. Obviously a little bit different, but I thought it might be interesting just to look at Tyrion, get an idea. It was on a lake. It was a farming or a coal and steel production factory where Carl was the doctor. So Tyrion to Omsk, 660 miles. We often heard it talk about it was a 1,000-mile trip. It was actually 1,000 kilometers, according to Google.
But
wait,
okay,
hit the page.
Okay.
But we know they left in July of 1919. There was 43 days of travel. They had two coaches or two carts, and the coachman and his family, he had a 16-year-old daughter, also traveled with him. They avoided the main roads, so we know they probably traveled much farther than 660 miles. But at 660, they were averaging 15 miles a day with horse and carriage.
But they traveled at night.
Martha just said they traveled frequently at night to avoid any conflict with the Bolshevik partisans in that area.
And they slept in haystacks in the day.
Okay. They arrived August 1919 in Omsk. And we have a document that shows Carl was hired on that day by the American Red Cross, at which time he received these two insignias, which would have been great in the book that we put together in December, but we just found them recently.
Addendum to come.
Addendum. Omsk to Irkutsk, 1,505 miles, and this is out of the Davies diary. They left on September 4th and arrived in Omsk or in Irkutsk via railroad on October 4th. That was Emily, Fred, and Eric.
And where was Carl? Oh.
Boys were sick, so Emily waited in Irkutsk for 3 weeks. Carl left them. He was still working at the hospital in Omsk, but he left and met them in Irkutsk, and then they departed Irkutsk together. Irkutsk to Vladivostok is 2,353 miles. We don't know anything along the way. There was no documents about that trip, how long it took, or what actually happened along the trail. Okay. We do know that Carl continued to work for the American Red Cross. Emily was a matron at an American Red Cross facility in Vladivostok. And in January 1920, the family submits an application for Russian exit visa. Carl, on July 14th, 2020, Carl terminated employment with American Red Cross. And at that time, they took a boat from Vladivostok to Suruga, Japan, which is 562 miles. And this is a picture of them on the Yome Maru, where during that transit, Carl and Eric are standing on the deck with the life preserver. And that was in July 1920. In Japan, they actually traveled from Suruga to Kyoto. And then there was comment about being in Miike and then by a ferry across to Nagasaki. That was 486 miles. Then Nagasaki, they left Nagasaki on July 26, 1920. Obviously, there was only air travel on Google, so it didn't just said the hours, but we know that it's 4,432 miles. They arrived on the US Sheridan, arrived on August 8th, 1920, and this is a picture of the harbor from Punch Bowl.
Wait. Can you see any? I
Oh,
don't
no,
know. Can you
back.
pick out any landmarks from here?
The, in the right, at the center, there's road going straight down. To the left, there's a building with,
This one?
no, right here. There's a building with a flag on the top. I think that may have been McKinney High School, the first buildings at McKinney High School.
Can you guys see that green? Okay.
Okay.
You think that's McKinley?
I think that's McKinley, but that's a wild guess. Okay.
Let me just erase that. Okay.
Okay, so this is a copy of the manifest from the Sheridan. And if you look at there are 4 Rappuns listed, and at the bottom are Carl Frederick Reppun and Emily Jane Reppun typed. And this I got from ancestry.com. Okay, if you want to know what the mileage was, next picture.
Oh yeah, do we have any guesses? Let's see.
Anyone want to guess?
Oh.
Oh, we've got a 6,400 or 6,500 one. We know that one's off because it was 4,000 from Vladivostok, Irkutsk, Vladivostok. 12,000, 9,300. Okay, 8,000.
9,000.
9,000.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, the actual distance
Yeah, I can.
was
Sorry.
Tirion to Honolulu was 9,998 miles. If we didn't add the obviously from Moscow to Tirion.
And that's an estimate based off of Google's estimates of how to travel between these places. So, right.
That's
Definitely.
an estimate. That's an estimate. So roughly 10,000 miles they traveled to get to Hawaii. Okay, Paul.
Okay. I guess, does anyone want me to go back to
That
any?
deserves a toast.
Pardon?
I think that deserves a toast. A toast
Oh.
to 10,000 miles traveled.
I could not agree more.
Yay.
Mark.
Or as the key would always say, prosit.
Yakida.
I think pass me the 4 boots.
So Glenn,
So, Jane, you can go out of, there you go. Now everybody can see each other again. Glenn, that was epic. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
All this time, Glenn, I did not know that Tirion was on a lake. I thought it was up in the middle of the mountains, and my image has always been small village or small town in the mountains, but I didn't realize there was a lake there too.
Yeah, when you look at the Google map and you start blowing it up, I mean, there's water everywhere in Russia, and every building, every house, or every little village seemed to be either on a river or a lake. So that it wasn't surprising to me that that they were on there was a lake. They never talked about the lake in any of the documents or that we have that Emily wrote. We don't know we know that they went sailing, that they had a little sailboat for each. Carl and Eric had sailboats that they used in Russia, but they never really talked about going to the beach or going to the water.
Glenn, the most surprising thing about your presentation was that Carl resigned from the American Red Cross in 2020. That was the most fascinating detail. If you go back and look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got the document from the American Red Cross saying when he was hired and when he terminated employment. And it was interesting that within 2 weeks after terminating employment, they were on a ship to Japan.
And Glenn, I was going back to that slide that shows the 2 boys holding up the lifesaver on the deck.
On the Yomi Maru.
Right. So that's actually Dad and
Eric.
And Eric. Yeah, you said Carl and Eric, but that's actually Dad and Eric, right?
Oh, sorry.
Right. And so Dad is the older, right? He was the taller of the 2.
Yes.
Yeah. So his hair was actually way shorter than that photo that's in the book of Emily's letters. Right before they left Japan, his hair was huge, and it looks like he must have gotten a severe haircut somewhere along the way there. Yeah.
I think he's actually wearing a hat in the photo. So, I mean, maybe he just did a classic Reppun technique of just shove it under a hat when you're, going sailing, like Uncle Charlie and Uncle Paul.
John Amlin. John,
No,
are you?
no, your brother.
Oh, my brother, John. John.
Yes.
Go for it.
Me?
Hello? Yeah, you're up.
Well, I'd add a little bit to that story. I know there's a photograph of Uncle Eric and Dad standing they're on the coastline of Vladivostok, looking out towards the ocean. I don't know where that photograph is. It might be in the film strips, but it's kind of a heavy photograph to look at, with the two of them sort of looking out towards their voyage. The other thing too, and something that we need to go and find, is the write-up by Riley Allen, who was the founder of the Honolulu Star Bulletin. Riley Allen and the founder of Straub were, along with the contingent of folks that were connected up with American Red Cross, right, Glenn, in Russia. And Riley Allen wrote this great piece about the voyage across from Japan to Honolulu, and how everybody was horribly seasick. It was a miserable voyage, and he compared it to another voyage, Noah's Ark. It's a classic piece. But because of how rough that voyage was, is my understanding, and Martha, you probably know more about this than I do, but that's one of the reasons why Grandma said she was never leaving terra firma again.
That's what she said, and she could not even go down to the beach and look at the water because it made her seasick to do that.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
many
John, this is the letter that she wrote in this book, right? This is the letter she wrote on August 6th while still at sea. And that's the paragraph that I included in my original email to everybody, in which she talks about having gone through a typhoon and that she was horribly sick during the voyage. Yeah.
It also should be noted that Riley Allen was not on the same ship with the year-old children that he was escorting from Russia back to Russia. So that group was actually traveled after Carl and Emily were on the Sheridan. They were not on the same ship, but probably had the same experience in the ocean.
Yeah. It's a great piece. We ought to dig it out somewhere, but yeah.
And Josh, can I share my artifacts, because it goes right with this?
Yeah, and then I'll follow you because mine goes with it as well.
Okay,
that's good.
They connected together, so that's great. Okay, so we're gonna. Yep, perfect.
Wait, let him. Should she jump into it, or do you have to?
Martha, the stage is yours.
Okay, you have to move back a little.
I have to move back a little. Okay, these felt boots, and they are thick, heavy felt, and not too long. These are the boots that Dad wore traveling all the way across from Chilian to here, actually. And so for the last 100 years, they have resided in the tropics, just sitting on a counter, not taken care of or anything. These felt boots are still strong as ever. Okay, that's my share.
So who's the Cinderella going to fit in there?
What?
Every member of the family that I know, except for the very young, our feet are too wide to have ever fit into anything this narrow.
No
Felt stretches. We know that.
Martha, there is a photo of me where you guys, probably 1,000 degrees outside, made me dress up in the same clothes that Dad traveled and put on those boots. And it's by the Hi-Fi. You remember that photo, Martha?
I remember that.
Yeah.
And also in kindergarten, Wog dressed up in those boots and a giant, I don't know, it was like fur coat or something that you guys had from, and he did a show and tell in his kindergarten class.
Right.
No photos.
That was the last time his feet were that small.
That actually was the artifact that I was gonna share, is the photo of me doing my show and tell
Oh my
Oh,
God.
my goodness.
And that's
Let's
it's
see it
actually
again.
first grade.
Classic.
Yeah, I was first grade, and so I had the boots and the jacket and the hat, and then I don't know. I still have that bear too, I think.
The Russian bear, no doubt.
Wait,
Yeah.
Wog, what are you holding?
I'm holding a little stuffed bear, but it had a music box in it, and plays a little song. You wind it up, and I can grab the bear and play the song if we wish.
Go
as well.
for it.
Yes,
Well,
please.
I actually have a codicil to that bear. I know why you were holding a bear, Wog, because that was something that I brought out. Was so I remember when I was a kid, I think in probably kindergarten or first grade, Ducky told me about, leaving home in the middle of the night and jumping on this carriage or cart and, going off and traveling off because the family, it was just not safe where they were. And that, he brought his bear with him. And that, I don't know if it was the first night or was sometime within that first week, his bear fell off the cart.
No.
And he lost his bear. And I just, like, at that age, like, I was like, he would have been my age or younger and he lost his bear. And that seemed just like, just the icing on the cake, right? Leave home, leave all this stuff, and you lose your teddy bear? Like, how horrible. So I had given him one of my teddy bears and it sat in his bedroom, for the rest of his life. And it's now missing its nose and it's super dusty, and now it's sitting above my bed. So anyway, Wog, I'm guessing that's why you took a bear, was because when Ducky was starting his journey, he probably had his felt boots, his fur coat, and his teddy bear.
And this is why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why.
Wait, Mom, okay. Yeah. Anyway, that's my thought on the bear.
And Jane, if you turn your camera, if you can, just slightly, the samovar is just over your right shoulder, right?
Yeah, actually, I need to hit the light for that.
It's we can.
Getting
Yeah.
the samovar hooked up. This picture frame is the reason they left when they did, because Fritz and Babs were sitting with Dunya on the couch, and this was sitting on a shelf behind them. This little
portrait.
Yeah,
a little portrait. Photos are super faded.
Someone shot through the house, and it went right through that picture frame right above them. And the next day they left because they were shot. Shot at.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, and as Uncle Josh, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah.
The samovar, I guess, Mom, was something that they took with them.
They took the samovar with them because, first of all, it was their method for heating everything, water, soup, whatever. And in the bottom of the coals, they hid whatever gold rubles they still had.
Wow,
And I don't think they had geckos jumping out of it when they opened it up, which I just had.
No. So anyway, that samovar has also been here for 100 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So next year we'll have tea in person made with the samovar.
Oh, we will?
Oh, sure.
Good. Okay, well, then I'll go because mine is connected to this part as well. Let me go into gallery view here. So this is going to take a minute to explain, but it's super cool for me and very meaningful. So Hanaho'oli School was founded by Sophie Cook in September of 1918. And everybody here, I think, on the call knows that Hanaho'oli is just a mile down the road from Punahou, and that both Dad and Eric were at Hanaho'oli for a couple of years, one in kindergarten and the other in the second grade, if I've got the list correct. Hanaho'oli provided me with this list of students in 1921, or the 1920-21 year, and both of their names are on it. And I also have a grade report on parchment that shows Dad's scores, if you will, including some standardized tests that they had to take when he was at Hanaholi, which is pretty cool. So here's the story. What I'm working from is this book, which is called Sincerely Sophie. And Martha, you guys already know about this already, and I think Evan, you know about it too, but this is the first time that I'm sharing this with the rest of the family. So this is Sophie Cook's autobiography, which she published in 1964. So the way I want to explain it is that when I started teaching at Punahou 26 years ago, in my first class as a teacher, which was a US history class, I had a wonderful student named Amber Strong. She later got married and became Amber Makayao, but 26 years after I had Amber as a student, I had been paying attention to her, but had kind of lost track a little bit. And we ran into each other and we sat down and had a conversation and decided to work on a project together. And it turns out that Amber was now the director of the Professional Development Center at Hanaholi School. And so we started talking, and at some point during the conversation, I said, oh yeah, my dad attended Hanaholi School. And she literally like punched me in the shoulder and said, shut up. And basically what she then explained to me kind of blew my mind. So Amber Strong, now Makayao, is the great aunt, or sorry, niece of Sophie Cook. So Sophie Cook founds Hanaholi in 1918. The first principal was a woman named Cecil Palmer. Cecil Palmer quit after a couple of months to join the American Red Cross and go to Siberia to serve. And although there's no documentation that Cecil Palmer actually met the Reppun family somewhere in Siberia, it's highly probable that they did. And so Sophie Cook became aware of the Reppun family through Riley Allenjohn and others. And eventually Sophie Cook was part of a small group of people that actually made the arrangements for the Reppun family to come to Honolulu. And she writes about it in her book. So the really cool part about this is that here I am now embarking on a project in 2019 with her great niece. And as you guys know, Mom and Dad were very close with Sophie and George Cook, especially on Molokai. So there's two paragraphs from this book that I want to read. So this is chapter 12, and it's titled Between the Two Wars. And this paragraph reads like this. In 1917, in Honolulu, I studied first aid under a man from the American Red Cross head office in Washington, D.C. I took my children, Dora, Paul, and Judd, to class in their bathing suits to serve as dummies to be practiced on. We used roller bandages in our work. Being one of the sturdy women of the class, I was assigned with others the duty of packing the cases of bandages to be sent to the first aid chapter of the Red Cross at Vladivostok in Siberia, of which our Hawaii chapter had charge. We also packed surgical dressings. When the Vladivostok chapter was broken up, Alfred Castle, Riley Allen, and Rudolph Bukeli brought home with them the Reppun family from Russia. Mother and father and two sons. Their story of many hardships in crossing northern Siberia in an open buggy in a year and a half is a saga which should be written and preserved. The father, a doctor, not only supported his family in Hawaii, but later sent his sons to Harvard. It is a great story of America and its opportunities. So I discovered this book through Amber last year, and completely sort of opened the door for a whole sequence of events that unfolded. Dad and Eric going to Hanaholi School and then eventually going to Punahou. And I think Dad graduated in 1936 or maybe 1932 from Punahou. And then, so to finish it off, there's one more part And this is really cool. This is actually a reference to Eric. So Sophie writes a whole chapter about the 50th wedding anniversary of Sophie and George Cook. And it was a party that they held on Molokai, and about 2,000 people in 1940, wait, do I have my date right on this one? In 1956, about 2,000 people on April 4th that descended on Molokai for this party. And so Sophie in this chapter is very funny. She's paying really close attention to what people are wearing. I think she's judging people definitely by what they're wearing. And she writes the following: people started arriving about 8:30 on, but the big rush began about 10 as the special planes from the other islands arrived. Most of the planes buzzed the house before going to the airport to unload. The people all came in taxis plus the Friendly Isles bus. Half fare price, 75 cents one way, were the order of the day. The Maui contingent all arrived in regular clothes as it was pouring when they left. Herbert Shipman arranged for a special plane to stop at Hilo, then at Waimea, to pick up all the guests from Hawaii Island. He wore a red sash, white shirt and pants, and a huge lauhala hat with a triple row of pohas as a lei, very effective. The Lloyd Osbornes and Eric Reppuns came from Kona in riding jeans and boots, but nearly everyone else wore mumu, holoku, aloha shirt, and old Kanaka hats. So I just laughed at that because it was clearly a little shot at the fact that they weren't dressed properly for the party. So anyway, that's my presentation. All of this really helped me to understand more about Dad and Mom's life on Molokai, and I was the only one not the only one not born. Martha, you were born, where were you born, Martha? You were born in Pittsburgh?
Baltimore.
Where?
Baltimore.
Baltimore, right. And then Charlie was born where? Lanai. And then the rest of you guys were born on Molokai, and then I was born on Oahu in 1958. So anyway, pretty cool. Glad to be able to provide that reference about Eric as well.
So Josh, that was about 1956 when that party was?
1956, yeah.
So I would have been 4 years old.
Right.
Missy, do you remember what year we left Molokai? Was it 56?
Oh wait, and just Uncle John, if you were there and you were 4, you were probably naked.
No, I had a Buster Brown t-shirt. I'm pretty sure. But you know what? When I left Molokai, I remember that I went with Mom to Big Island. And Auntie Molly was there, I think.
Yeah.
Ricky and I are same age, right? So we went to Pu'uaua Ranch,
yeah.
where Uncle Eric was.
Right.
And so, yeah, it makes sense that he would come in jeans. And I just remember riding on a horse. Uncle Eric put me up on a horse, hanging on for dear life to the pommel because there were nothing but horns all around us. We were herding cattle.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Eric was the ranch manager, and Karen and I have traded a whole bunch of emails about that, which was really cool, Karen, to exchange those emails with you.
Yeah, it has been. It was fun.
Yeah.
Actually, it's interesting, but Pu'uaua Ranch is, it's managed for conservation now, and I'm on one of their email lists, and they're looking for photos and stories of Pu'uaua Ranch's history. So if that's something, maybe Auntie Karen, if you have, maybe I can forward you their contact information, because yeah, they would probably be really interested to hear.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any photos, but you never know.
I think stories as well. They're definitely interested. Yeah.
And Grandpa Reppun took Dad and Uncle Eric. I'm not sure about Uncle Arthur. They visited that ranch when they were kids. Rick Towell found a listing. I think I might have sent it to you, Karen, or I know I sent it to Ricky. Yeah. And they actually signed in the guest book there when they were kids.
Wow.
So
yeah. Okay. So who's next?
Whew. What I have, what I submitted, Bink, I gave to you, do you have, is that something you can put up? But that jumps us forward sort of to, and it's really more of context. Again, something that Rick Towell shared with me. One of my classmates at Punahou was Peter Young, who is a great character. He was the head of DLNR under Linda Lingle. You see up here on the screen, where is the name of his outfit? Ho'okuleana.com. It's a fascinating website to go check out. But he put up a lot of information about all kinds of places all over the state. But he has a great piece about some really interesting pieces about Kaneohe Bay and Libbyville, in particular the background of Libbyville or Wailau Peninsula that we look out over from Lulani Street. Lulani Street being at the top of what used to be pineapple fields. It was a pineapple road basically above pineapple fields all along Ma'ele'ele Ridge. And so this is, really wanted to provide this more as a context. This is where the Reppun family kind of grew up, and you can see the pineapple fields there, and you can see that's actually Harum Fong's fish pond. Looks like a smaller fish pond next to it too. Half of that's filled in at this point. We're trying to get that off the market into the hands of the Trust for Public Land recently, but not to happen. But anyway, it's just a fascinating background of what was going on when the Reppun family arrived in Hawaii, early part of the last century, what life was like, and pineapple and sugar and all of the influences that swept across Kaneohe Bay area, many of which we have been fighting ever since. So let's kind of leave it at that. This is what 1924 picture, pineapple sugar all over the place. Just ran roughshod over a lot of the cultural history, a lot of the the places that once existed there. That shot looking out at Moli'i Fish Pond, White Sands, and Lo'i in Hakipu'u.
There's a fish pond.
Yeah.
Wow, John, these photos are fantastic. I've never seen these.
Peter would be really excellent to connect up with. I wish we had invited him to this. We really ought to do that in the future. He's just been pumping out tons and tons of information. Great background.
I'm good friends with his niece. Can maybe reach out to her.
Really? Yeah.
Lighty Morgan, her uncle. Her mom's a Young.
Oh, no kidding. Never realized that. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
So, John, I have a question then. So by the time the family moved back to Kahalu in 1957, and then I was born in October 58, like how much of it would have looked like those photos, or how much had it changed at that point? I've always believed that the Reppun house and the Mensch house were the only two houses anywhere in the neighborhood at that point in 1957 and 58.
And the lies next door.
The lies were already there.
Okay.
Between us and the Mensches, there wasn't much. A lot of grass. Posey, the cow that the Mensches raised, and Reppuns and Mensches roving back and forth between the two places. But there wasn't any pineapple. There were lots already. But I remember when we were looking at. I remember we climbed up the hill up at to the Kahalu side, the first point you get to from our house walking towards Kahalu. We dug holes in the red dirt bank to climb up that bank because that's where Uncle Eric and Dad were initially looking at buying lots, right, Marth? And then they changed their mind. They changed their mind. They knew which way the winds blew. If we had been up in that point, it would have been a lot more vulnerable to Kona winds. So they ended up coming around the corner and kind of tucking ourselves into that pocket in Ma'ele'ele, 2 lots next to each other, 3 lots actually. Pop's, ours, and Uncle Eric and Auntie Molly's lot. And there we be. But yeah.
It's very cool, John. It's really cool.
Martha Ho'okano, Ho'okanos were down in Wailau Peninsula. Martha Ho'okano their family lived right next to Lainani Beach Park, to the boat ramp. Stan McCabe is her son, and I remember talking with Auntie Martha about how she and Dad used to play with each other. That sounds terrible, but they used to play with each other. They lived because the house was right above, kind of right across where O'Connell Hall is, by St. John's by the Sea, and she remembered the house and the red flowers that were growing behind it. But that, yeah, they were playmates back then, and so they lived down close, right next to Libby McNeil, Libbyville.
Cool.
Did Uncle Eric, his lot would have been on the other side of Duckies? So
yep, that's where the Genesis group, David Knox and so on, ended up.
Did Uncle Eric build a house there, or not in the end?
No, he did not. They sold the lot. My mother sold the lot after my father died.
I see. Yeah.
And that would have been in the 1960s, I think, right, Karen?
Right. My dad died in 1959. So it would have been probably 62, something like that. It took a while to sell.
Right.
Maybe even longer. Maybe even longer.
It might have been. I don't know. It might have been.
That was whenever we got in fights with each other, that for me anyway, that's where we would escape to. I would go to Uncle Eric's lot and climb in the vines and sleep it off until the coast was clear.
We used to have noni wars, and you guys would throw unripe noni at me. I'm still hurting to this day, dude.
That's because you were on the bottom floor of the treehouse there.
You guys made me be on the ground, and you would go up in the treehouse, and you would just rain unripe nonis down on top of me. Yeah.
Charlie was on the top because he was the oldest.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we, Susan or Karen or Jeff? Do you guys one of you want to take the next?
I have a letter that was written after Dr. Reppun died, and he died in June of 1940, after he had been ill for 3 years, having had a serious car accident in 1937. Anyway, this letter is to Grandma, and it's from my godfather, Buzz Knowlton, who was my father's best friend from Harvard for 4 years. So here it is, part of it. I'm not going to read all of it. Dear Mrs. Reppun, it is with profound regret and the sincerest feelings of sadness that I begin this letter. Blink wrote me and told me of the doctor's death, as you probably know. Such a fine man hardly deserved the fate that was his these past few years. But by gosh, it seems as if the very finest of men are those who suffer and still come out on top. I don't suppose they would end up as men to be respected and revered unless they were capable of meeting every kind of calamity and licking it. I am so grateful for the privilege of having known him. I am so grateful for the 4 college years spent with his son, the one man in the world I really love, and for the opportunity through him to meet you all, and for the 2 short months I stayed with you in Hawaii. It must be deeply satisfying to you to know that the doctor was so dearly loved by many people, and to feel that now he is no longer made to suffer. You yourself must have gone through near hell the past year, and for you, I am glad that ordeal, which no one could help, has passed. Blink has written beautifully of you and your stout-heartedness. I repeat, as I once did to him, that our world would be ever so much easier to live in if there were more men and women like you and yours. Non-gold selfishness seems hard to find even among the best brought up people. So many don't just take the trouble. I think it must be another result of the speed and turmoil of an age made unnecessarily complicated. Time as an element has acquired a far too fastidious meaning. Men are loath to give over a little of it in order to make lives or a life a bit happier, a shade lighter. It is in much the same wise that I have let this letter slide. I solemnly promised myself that I would answer Blake's letter the night it came in nearly a week ago. I didn't mean to, but that is no excuse. So that's basically, isn't that a wonderful letter?
Yeah.
It really captures Dr. Reppun. So anyway, that's my share.
Wow, that's fantastic, Karen.
Who is the Blake mentioned?
That's my dad, Eric.
Oh, his nickname was Blake?
Yes.
Blake. Oh,
Blake.
Blake.
Blake. Lincoln. That's at least that was his nickname when he was at Harvard. I think for Uncle Fred, I think Uncle Fred called him Baps.
Well, that was his name.
I think they traded it back and forth too. So,
Karen, when our branch of the family got to travel to the mainland,
yes,
all the way across, we stayed with the Knowltons.
Did you really?
We stayed with. We got to meet Buzz Knowlton. We stayed with the Knowltons, and I think the 6 boys fell in love with the 6 daughters that he had.
Yeah. I think he only had 5 daughters, but that was enough.
Yeah, it was a really one. I remember that. I think was that in New York
It was in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their house is called Petticoat Hill.
Right.
5 daughters.
Petticoat Hill got invaded by the Bushy Mountain Boys. Ridge.
Well, that's nice. I didn't know that. That's great.
And Karen, that trip began with the family minus Dad because he was held back in Honolulu. I think something to do with his medical practice. That if I have this correct, John, sailed on the Lurleen to San Francisco.
Okay.
That was a 4-day crossing. So Mom and the 7 kids on the Lurleen, and then when we got to San Francisco, Dad was waiting for us. He had flown and met us there, and then the entire 9 people in the family crammed into a small Greenbrier van, traveled 6 weeks across the United States.
Yeah, Josh, I think that your dad stayed back because Grandma was in the hospital.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
She died when we were on that.
She died during that trip, I think, didn't she?
Yeah, she did.
She did. Yeah.
That's me.
July of 1963.
Yeah.
So I was only 5 at that point and not aware of that.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't realize that was when Grandma died. I thought, I think he might have said something that he had to deliver a baby, but we didn't come into the Greenbrier bus yet, Josh. We went from Dr. McGoy was there with Dad in San Francisco, and we went by train from San Francisco to Chicago.
Oh yeah, right. And then
I think we got some stories about you and Lansta on that one.
Yeah. We don't need to go into that. That's all right. Okay.
No. We like hearing these stories. Go ahead, tell us.
Josh's great imaginary friend, Lansta. Turned out to be Lone Star State.
So now we should probably hear from Susan and Jeffrey, representing Uncle Arthur.
Oop, there I am. Yeah. Well, that bus that you guys were on, Jeffrey and I and my mom and dad picked it up in Columbus, Ohio, drove it back to the coast, and shipped it to Hawaii for you guys. So that was the end of that story, that long trip. But yeah, my dad was born in 1921. So guaranteed those boots that Uncle Fred wore in Russia would have never gotten on Daddy's feet because he was, till his dying day, a quad E. He was a Honolulu-born kid who never wore shoes until he went to school. I think after the 6th grade, he was barefoot. So I'm looking at those shoes, I was laughing. I go, Daddy had the whitest feet on earth. But I guess my dad kind of had the next episode in because he was born in Hawaii. And he was, I must say, I've been working a lot with lately a website or a Facebook page called Pan Am. And of course, he went through Punahou, and he was born and raised in Hawaii, and ended up being kind of one of the pioneers of the airline industry. So in the next year or so, I have been working very closely with a lot of the people, historical people, about the Pan Am story. When he was in Punchbowl, working for Hawaiian Electrics, when Pearl Harbor was bombed. And his story kind of went from that point on, where he went on to Australia, met his wife, and started our branch of the family, which is another whole big story. Of course, he had a wonderful childhood in Hawaii, and me taking care of him and dealing with him towards the end of his life, it was really kind of wonderful, because he had hours and hours of telling me stories of his life in Punahou, playing football, all of the people he went to school with. And one of the lovely things about dementia, I must say, is that your memory of your childhood comes in clear and crystal clear. And I remember my time. Now, let's see, I was the firstborn, 1948. So we lived on Bachelot Street, kind of below where Grandma lived. And what I have to share as an artifact is, I think all of you guys remember, if you ever slept in Grandma's house up in Manoa, was the sound of the Seth Thomas chime clock. So Daddy kind of rescued that from the end of those, and he had that refurbished. I've had it refurbished twice, just picked it up recently. And can you see it behind me right there? There's Grandma's clock that was up on the mantelpiece all those years. and
Great. So can you put the computer closer to it so we can really look at it?
Okay, let me see. Is that helping? Oop, wait a minute. There we go. And unfortunately, it's not chiming right now because it's at 8:15. But it's a Seth Thomas, and I have all of the records and all of the, the refurbishes we've had. And it's just wonderful. Let me just, I'll put it ahead a little bit. Do you remember sleeping upstairs at Grandma's house and hearing that thing right up the staircase, through the fairy room, and up into the bedrooms? You could hear the chime clock. And so I just love it. It's just one of those things that I just remember so much, because from the time I was 5 years old, then we took off for Japan. And so we kind of came back and were part-time residents of Hawaii. Of course, when we arrived, all our cousins would call us shark bait, and what other shark bait, what is it, Coast Howleys we were, whatever. They teased us because we, of course, we were living in Australia in the Southern Hemisphere in the middle of winter. We'd come up, and my dad would say, we need to go visit the cousins because the Strine accent of yours is getting a little too much. So we would arrive, and our cousins would very rudely discuss our pale skin, and then we'd go out to the ocean and get ourselves burnt to death. There's just myriads of stories. I mean, a lot of them with my mother, who was a very famous Australian model. Daddy did marry up, as he often declared. When he went to Australia to open up Pan Am, he met Jean Blake, famous model, and they took off and came to Hawaii. Her mother, my Grandma Blake, told me at the time, I was so relieved after the war when all the young Australian girls took off with these beautiful American soldiers and pilots and whatever, took off to the United States and emigrated. I was so glad Jean didn't get caught up in that. And then damn Pan Am came down and Arthur met and fell in love with Jean Blake and took her to Hawaii. And that began a whole other historical story. So it's like the third guy kind of did a whole different story. He still insisted we come back all the time and correct our Strine accent and get back into the American lingo. And he just loved Hawaii. And I think you guys all remember, was it Shakey's Pizza Parlor? whatever, Daddy would come back and he goes, let's all go to Shakey's. So our trips back to Kaneohe and were just spectacular. Now, I do remember myself, Molokai, and living with Nina and Karen and Uncle Eric's house with Annie Molly and the gang. I think they left me there for my 5th birthday when Daddy went to Tokyo to do a reconnaissance on where we were going to live and get a place to live when we went to live in the Pan Am compound. So I do remember a whole birthday and living in the house with Nina and Ricky and Carl. I had such a crush on Carl all my life, I got to tell you. He was my best cousin. And just funny stories, just crazy stories. And Missy and Karen doing hula classes on Molokai. I remember those and going and watching them, and I was so jealous. And I thought Uncle Eric owned all the pineapple. Actually, that's what my thought was, because he was agriculture guy, so I thought he owned all those pineapples. I really believe that. And being an animal lover, I remember Wahi, the name of all the dogs you guys had over the years, Kua. And because I spent my life living in foreign countries and my father would not allow us to have pets. He says, I'm not dragging 4 broken hearts around the world every time we have to leave a dog or a cat in quarantine, so I couldn't have them, but I certainly did a point. And I have a giant, big rescue black dog right now who runs crazy and chases trucks around and around the garden in a big circle. Who does he remind you of? Boomer. You know how Boomer used to go round and around and around that as you were driving down the driveway? Jeffrey brought that up to me the other day. And so we were kind of an in and out part of the family, but it was always our anchor. And Daddy always loved his life in Hawaii and his years at Punahou. And I had the pleasure of being his close companion in his last few years. And it was kind of wonderful to listen to him talk and how much I sort of learned I was going to write a book, but of course at the time you don't. And it's called My Journeys Through Dementia. His heart, he lived quite a few years further on than his other 2 brothers, and kind of got older and went through that journey. And I must say it was really kind of neat to have dealt with that, because I read later on that it's good that when you get older and you remember really great details about your childhood and your growing up, it's because you were really happy then. And it's part of aging. And I thought that's a really good explanation. I love that idea, because Daddy certainly did give me details. I mean, he could tell you in the 3rd grade at Punahou who was in his class and where they came from and what their fathers did and stuff. And that was a fascinating experience for me. So anyway, that's my bit. And I got the clock. And also Grandma's brooch. I have Grandma's, this is one of the brooches she came from Russia with. It's got it's a cameo, and it's pink coral. Beautiful, beautiful thing. And then I know, Missy, I know you have one of the brooches that when Grandma got married, Carl bought all his sisters from Mappin and Webb in London. Beautiful. It's still there. Jewelry store, famous jewelry store. I gave my brooch to Erica, Carl's wife, when she was married. And I know Missy has one of those brooches too. So all the girls got so I know Missy and I and Karen, I think, and Nina do have one piece of jewelry. We got to pick stuff out and stuff
But
like
Susan, who's the cameo? Who's the person
in the cameo?
I don't. It's just a cameo. It's not an actual person. It's just a brooch. Those were, those were famous. It's got pearls and diamonds around it. It also pops up, and you can wear it around your neck, or it's a brooch. It was like a brooch, and it's just. I don't think it's anything that was. I think it was just a very, popular piece of jewelry in those days. And that was when we picked out, we each got to pick, you got the bracelet with the rubles, and this is what I picked. And there was also a gold watch, which I think Diane got. So Mommy had these for a long time. She kind of picked for us when Grandma died, and we were all taking, a piece of jewelry for all the girls.
Yeah.
And so then when Mummy passed away, then I chose this one. Yeah.
I have a snake bracelet.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes. 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 So that's my story. And
Jeff,
more to come. There's an incredible history of Daddy and Pan Am and China and how he opened up Beijing and closed it down in Shanghai and stuff. So that more to come. Jeffrey and I are going to work on that in the next year, but I've been really collecting a lot of fabulous information about his whole history.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So Jeff, do you want to go next?
Sure. Excuse me. Sure. We just kind of copied down some notes. Carol interviewed my father once, and so some of the things I've already discussed. And I guess he told Carol, and I don't know how true this is. He said they called each other Blink. So, and then they called,
interchangeable. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they called him Stanner. And I have no idea where that came from. Somebody talked about visiting the Big Island. My father did. He said he did travel with his father once to the Big Island to see one of the volcano eruptions. He also talked about going with his father to Maui, to Haleakala, and he said they drove to the top and climbed down into the pit and spent a couple days there at the CC camp that was in the middle of the crater. He also talks about the house, and his room was over the front door of the house. The front door that Grandma would never let be used as a front door.
Never used as a front door, never.
Yeah, because you didn't want anybody walking by the window, right? Well, apparently there's a 4-foot space between the ceiling on the first floor and his room. And so he used to go out, and he said Skeet Swan, who somebody lived down the street, used to leave stacks of Western magazines on the corner for garbage pickup, and he would go and grab them, needless to say, without Grandma knowing about it. And he'd take them down into that area underneath his bedroom, and with a flashlight, he'd read them at night, or read them down there. He says, you remember going to school with his father, that they'd leave about 7 a.m. He'd be heading to the hospital, and they'd drop him off at school. He mentioned his mother never swam. Carol said, did your mother ever swim? No. Did she ever go out in a boat? No. Very, very rarely. He says in a blue moon would she go out in a boat, which kind of follows with her ship experience. He talked about learning to drive with his father, first of all, sitting on his lap steering while his father did, and that was at age 4, he says he thinks he started. Talked about driving all over the Poly. He said, first of all, his father had a Studebaker, and then he had a Packard. He remembers when they were driving over the Poly at one time, the whole top, kind of convertible top, the whole thing blew off again. Of course, from a historical standpoint, the First World War, which led into the Revolution and so forth, obviously had a huge impact, and really the whole reason they left Europe and came to the Americas. But the other historical event was, of course, Pearl Harbor. And in talking about that, he said he was awoken that morning. He said there was a blast in the hill above the house. And he says he suspects it was an anti-aircraft shell or a dud that didn't go off and went off on the mountain. He says they never actually got an explanation for that, but obviously other things were important. And for him, he was working with Hawaiian Electric, so he immediately got into his car and went down to Pearl Harbor, to the substation at Pearl Harbor. And he said driving around the other side of Pearl Harbor from where the Arizona was burning, he said you couldn't see much. He says there was just smoke everywhere. He saw some of the Japanese bombers flying by him as he was driving along the road. He said they had stopped bombing the harbor. He says he thinks they were hitting Hickam at that time. But he said you'd see planes flying over. He said a lot of Japanese were taking pictures. And he actually said really you could almost see the face of one of the pilots that flew past him. So, another part of world history that they were involved with. He talked about Eric was working with Hawaiian Pineapple at the time, but that he joined the police force as a kind of a part-time uniformed officer. Because for 5 days they basically shut down all the roads, and just really the whole area was shut down because they were waiting for the invasion. The expectation was the bombing was just basically softening up for an invasion and take over the island, which fortunately never happened. So those were some of the stories that that kind of bring to it. I wasn't that old when Grandma died. I just remember her as a older lady and pretty rambunctious. I remember her sitting at the end of the table with her glass of iced tea, glass of sugar with some iced tea for taste, arguing with her 3 big sons and giving them no quarter. Also terrifying us with the fear of a giant catfish eating us in the pond if we ventured out into the pond. The fairy room stories, etc. So the book that we got that you guys put together, it really struck me reading the story about her as a young girl, before she was married, worrying, just like a very, very much like a young girl, insecure, worried about her station in life versus her Carl's, etc. It just kind of reminds you that woman that we knew, the pretty stern, strong woman that we knew, was kind of a young woman, uncertain of life, and at one time. So we really appreciated that book. That was really a great work you guys did. So
That's really good.
So anyway, that's what I have to share.
Jeff, I don't know that I've ever told you this, but every time you Arthur Rappuns would blow into town from either Sydney or Delhi or Tokyo, wherever you were coming from, your dad would take all of you to Sears. And to this day, I'm still jealous of the fact that he would take you to Sears and he would buy you things like Rock'em Sock'em robots and stuff that my dad would never allow us to have. So, thanks for the opportunity to unload that on you.
We used to save our money all year. We used to have a Sears catalogs, okay, and we would plan out these shopping trips because, well, first of all, we got a lot of our clothes there because clothes were fairly expensive in Australia, relatively speaking. Oh yeah, we bought, and of course, with being on the airline, we'd buy whole bikes. He'd fly them back. We'd take them all, and of course, but then we brought dogs to you, right? Like Boomer. Yeah. Those were really fun times.
Yeah, Jeffrey, very noticed. We were watching as you guys got the good toys.
Jeffrey, whenever there's a threat of a hurricane or a shipping strike or anything or a pandemic, now everybody stocks up on toilet paper and rice and stuff. But I remember whenever there was a threat of anything, Grandma would have 2 50-pound bags of sugar in her pantry.
Well, of course.
50-pound bags of sugar.
Yeah.
And very little tea that went with it. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Precious tea.
Exactly.
I've got 5 of these. You guys look at these. They're silver. Remember, Grandma used to make us put our glasses on the table in these silver little casters. And I've got 5 of them. I don't know. Those I grabbed and went, oh, I remember on Grandma's table. And then I also have one. Okay, can you see the chair? Let's see if I can do this. You remember? The chair from the dining table. I still have it, but you can't see it really well. But I remember Daddy, when we saved one of them when Grandma died, Daddy says, why do I want that in my house? Do you know how uncomfortable those things were to sit on all those years?
Actually, we've got one too.
Yeah, I
Hold it
know.
up.
Hold
And,
it up.
and we would
And
get on
I
the
can
table,
confirm
and the
it's uncomfortable.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are. They're really hard. And then, but I just use mine for decoration. But then, and I look at that and I look at these and I think of Grandma saying ELBOWS because
Yeah.
we get on the table, put our elbows, and we'd have to take the elbows off.
But you know, Susan, that furniture was the cheap furniture in Honolulu at the time. And you know how they got it? Grandma used to ask, I think just my dad, I'm not sure if Uncle Eric too, to pilfer a few dollars from Carl's wallet every once in a while. And that's how she saved enough money to buy that furniture.
And where's
You
the
guys-
table now?
Do you guys
Where's the
remember
big table?
Grandma's?
Remember the big table that went with it? I believe it. I love that chair. But Mommy had it in her house. Of course, we took one. Daddy said one only. And he kept saying, I don't know why you want to look at that thing. I had to sit on that for all those years. It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What happened to that big table? It was over at, in the big house.
I don't know. I was going to ask the same thing.
Jane's
Well,
house.
okay, so we have it. Mom ended up with it after Dickie passed away.
Actually, it's supposed to go to Evan's
Oh yeah,
house.
Evan, it's supposed to be in your house. That thing is
Oh.
huge, and we're not quite sure. We're not quite sure where to put it to use it.
Well, I have,
house
my
yet.
parents had their dining set made in Hong Kong, and I have that in my beautiful new little house in Petaluma. It's huge too. So let's just plan on having a big party on all of these tables before we have to get rid of them.
Well, Evan, your table.
While we're talking about the big table, this is the monkey that sat on the dining room or on the library table.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I remember. Yes.
Well, just as one aside, because you guys brought it up, but I guess it'd be great grandma for me's house in Manoa. So I was actually lucky enough to house it there a bunch of times.
I remember. Yes.
And I just ran in, actually before the pandemic started, I ran into Dr. Sprague passed, but Robbie Sprague, his wife, is still alive, and I just ran into her. And so maybe at some point, if all of this kind of resolves, I could contact her again, and she's very nice, and maybe we could have a little
so
party
cool.
there. But I didn't get to play in the fairy room, but I did indeed see that crawl space in one of the bedrooms, but now it has like an escape ladder in it, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty funny that's where he was reading his dirty magazines.
That's funny. I know. And I remember the fairy room. I still have my book. I want to get copies of it for all you, called The Little Chicken That Wouldn't Go to Bed. Remember? Peep, peep, I don't want to go to bed, Grandma would say in her little British accent. I still have The Little Chicken That Wouldn't Go to Bed. And it's sitting in my room. I go, I've got to get copies of this for everybody in the family that Grandma read this to every night.
Remember the bathroom downstairs?
Yes.
The windows were all painted black. They were blacked out.
Yeah.
Because
and got rid of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
The other thing I remember from Grandma's, she may have been real liberal with the sugar, but not so much with the toast. She had that little device that you would fold the bread.
Yes, I have it. I have it. You can cut the bread in half. I have it.
So you end up with this super thin piece of bread.
I know.
Yeah.
I grabbed it at the time. I had the opportunity because I thought I love bread and this will keep me from getting too fat on bread. So I'll just do half slices. I have Grandma's little slicey thing. Yes. I always have it put away very carefully somewhere. That's funny.
I found one of those in an antique shop in Jacksonville. And so I bought it just because it was
And what's Jane, what did they do with the lily pond?
The lily pond was still there. They had put a roof over the back patio. It was actually the best place to be in summer. It was like, because all those thick stone walls were around, it kind of like kept it nice and cool.
It had the black tile on the floor.
Yep, but yeah, so the lily pond was still there and it was in really good condition. That was one of my house sitting jobs, was to make sure it was topped up with water.
Wow.
And
And is the awful
the
catfish
pond.
down below, the deadly catfish that the electric, with electric,
You're
remember,
electrified if you end it.
I don't remember.
we
And there were
believed
no
if we fell in,
catfish.
we'd be electrified.
No catfish. I
Speaking of
don't.
the pond. Hello. Hello. Speaking of the pond, you guys remember this? Speaking
What's
of
that?
the pond.
Yeah.
Speaking of the pond, do you remember this?
Oh, the frogs. Yeah.
The
yeah.
frogs,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
There it is.
I've
Oh,
loved frogs
this
all my
frog.
life.
This was on the. This was at the pond.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Corner, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I've from that day forward, I collect frogs. I love frogs because of my my grandma's frog pond. That's great. They're the best. They're the best critters on earth. How cute.
She would warn us about the electric, whatever it was, catfish or eels
Yeah.
or whatnot.
It was in their
She
whiskers.
just didn't want us to go in. She just didn't want us to go in there.
Exactly.
Drown
So
or
we knew
something.
that we'd be electrocuted if we did, so we stayed away from it.
And it was only like a foot deep anyway, I think.
I know. Years later, when I found that out, I thought, God, she scammed us.
Okay, so
Charlie,
I'm going to jump in here for a second because we still have quite a few people who have yet to go.
Yeah.
And so let's, Carl, do you want to do a presentation, or are you
busy with kids? Where's
Love
Erica's?
to hear from you. Are you? I know it's getting late where you are for sure.
Yeah, the 2-year-old is asleep. Well, she's in bed. She's not asleep. And then number 2 is eating constantly, right?
There we go. Oh.
This is big.
Aw.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll keep holding her there. I'm going to take a screenshot of the whole meeting. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Perfect. Okay.
And then when Susan was talking about the brooches, I talked to Erica and she went and found her.
There it is. That's Mappin and Webb.
her gift.
That's
I think she
the
had pinned
actual
on her
original
dress.
jewelry box. And you know what? Mappin and Webb is still in London. They're still the best jeweler there. Wow. Yeah. So Carl had class. All the sisters got a brooch from Mappin and Webb for the wedding. When he married Emily.
That's neat.
Carl, what was that brooch? Was it in the shape of a heart or a circle
Yes.
or something?
Yeah, it's a heart.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get it.
There you go. Yes, little heart and with little pearls in it.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
And that's the original box.
Yeah.
They're all just really little delicate. And there's the Muppet and Webb.
Yeah, it's got like a metal hinge and it still latches and everything.
Oh yeah, it's
Still
gold.
works
It's beautiful.
The day it first started.
Paul hasn't said anything.
Where's Paul? Come on, Paul. Hey, Paul.
How to say
There's
anything.
Paul and Kelly. And there's your daughter. We had fun in San Francisco, didn't we, a few years back?
Yeah, that was a nice visit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about the bread.
Huh?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that bread slicer. I was wondering what happened to it.
I got it.
I thought that was a very valuable little tool. The other thing I was wondering is where are all the toys where they were in the fairy room? Especially that little.
Okay,
cowboy
somebody
set.
I got the book, the little chicken that would not go to bed. Somebody got the teddy bear. Somebody got, I think, Karen.
Oh,
Somebody got the little high chair with the bear in it.
It was Impy, and I still have it.
Impy, yeah. I knew Karen had one. I'm gonna go get do I have it?
C-straw.
Yes, I do. Hold on.
Am I talking still?
Yeah.
You want me to say something?
Paul, this is your moment. You're on the stage.
Okay. Well, I brought a couple things. This one doesn't have anything to do with the Reppun family, except, does anybody remember what this is? I'll give you a hint.
Oh, is it a
He used to have a big
self-portrait?
cigar. Huh? Self-portrait. Yeah. It used to have a big cigar. It was carved from a coconut tree in Tirayan. It's from a coconut. Nobody remembers what this is? It had a cigar sticking out of the mouth. And it was a portrait.
So is it the Czar?
No, it was Pop.
I was
It
gonna
was
say
given to Pop.
Pops.
Yeah, and had a big cigar sticking out. And this was, you know, the paint is kind of full of lizard eggs and stuff. But this is, anyway, not the Reppun family exactly, but anyway, the story of Pop and his ancestors coming to Pittsburgh and doing all that would be another nice one to trade. Everybody's got a good story. But this is what I brought. And it's a book called Sea Struck. My favorite book. It's the only book I've ever read 3 times. And I think I'm due to read it again because I've forgotten some of it. It's a really good book and it's so valuable. I think Will read it. It's so valuable that this isn't the original copy. This one, I think, who was it? Might have been Kello. He found this for me in a bookshop in England or something that's got the bill of lading and stuff in it.
That was not me. I never been to England.
Oh, it wasn't on, somebody found it on the internet.
Oh.
Okay, but anyway, if you want to borrow this book, I can loan out this copy of it. The original copy, I don't loan out. And this was a book that belonged to Dad when he was a kid and somehow it came to me and it's my favorite book ever. It's the most salty book I've ever read. Have you read it, Will?
Paul, can you say the name again?
Sea Struck. Sea Struck.
Put the
By whom?
spine up to the camera.
By a guy named Bennett Stanley, who also wrote under the name of Stanley Bennett, who also wrote under the name of Rex Gordon. He wrote his science fiction under Rex Gordon, and he wrote his sea books under Bennett Stanley, and his real name was Stanley Bennett. Anyway,
So,
this was from the 40s or something.
Why is it your favorite book?
Huh?
Why is it your favorite book?
Why is it my favorite book?
Yeah.
You have to read it. You have to read it. It's the salt. The last line of it, and I'll give this away because I don't know who will read it. But the last line of it is, and we were rolling down to Mogador, Tenerife, and Santa Cruz. Does that give you an idea?
No.
And we were rolling down to Mogador, Tenerife, and Santa Cruz. What part of the world is that?
Well, not the
Nobody knows.
Pacific.
Coming out of the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Coming out of the Mediterranean, headed towards South America, Tenerife and Santa Cruz are islands out there, and Mogador, the Canary Islands and all that. Anyway, that's his escape. So that's my story. Other thing I was wondering was, why is there no mention in any of these stories about our family about the Spanish flu?
He did. He started with it.
Oh, he did? Maybe I missed that.
Well, I guess maybe since they were on the, I mean, they would have been in Chile by then, so I don't know how hard the Spanish flu hit that part of Russia. You got a mean echo, Uncle Paul. I don't know what that's from.
Paul, is there another computer open in the room? It killed me because you're echoing.
No.
No.
Don't ask me.
Okay.
Just get that cigar, Uncle Paul.
Okay, Karen's got Wimpy.
Paul, I can respond to your question actually. So back to my former student Amber, who's at Hanaholi School now. They're actually doing a professional development session for teachers on Oahu, and it's about teaching the Spanish flu in Hawaii, and it's super interesting. That she's actually given me some of that documentation, and if you go back through it, you can see that the number of deaths in Hawaii had really spiked in the summer of 1920, but it had started right around the time that the Reppuns were arriving in July, and they arrived in August, and then in the fall, it started to fade away. by that time, but it had been in Hawaii for 3 years at that point. So I'm curious, like you, about what they might have been thinking that they were arriving in Honolulu, where the Spanish flu had gotten loose. So it's an interesting topic. I think it would be really worth looking into.
Was the Spanish flu, did that kind of pass through Russia as well?
Everywhere.
I mean, because that would have been on their journey, right? Like that would have been during their travels. That would have been one of the many things they were dealing with.
Absolutely, right. Okay, Paul, thank you.
Could we hear from Mary Reppun, who's been sitting patiently listening to all of this?
Yes, I agree. Mary.
Mary. I think she's muted. Mary?
Minute. There you go. Am I unmuted?
You're on.
Well, I wondered if Pink had got the pictures that I sent. Pink? Brad, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, maybe you could show them, though, the only things I had that I thought might be of interest to someone.
Yep, 1 second.
I tried.
These ones?
Yeah, those two, the sister-in-laws, right? And then the one of Carl and his dad, Molokai.
Oh.
Wow, Mary, that photo is fantastic of Mom and Molly and Jean.
And Jean. I love it. And then there were two others. Did you get those?
Wait, who was that? Sorry, who was that?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about the picture. Yeah, I'm a terrible email person to take pictures, but there's Carl and that's Frederick Wilhelm. Yes, taken a big house, I believe. You put him up with in one Christmas in 1972.
Mom says the portrait is Carl Frederick, who is how many generations?
Frederick Wilhelm.
Oh, where's Carl?
Yeah, Frederick Wilhelm. It's on the bottom of the photograph.
See it, Mom?
It just says Carl Reppun with portrait of his great grandfather Frederick Wilhelm.
That's Uncle Fred's writing. Yeah.
Yes, I believe so. And then the other I had was, I think there's one more thing, right? I apologize for how horrible the pictures, but there was one more with, and it's this one. Can you see that?
Oh, right, yeah.
And that's upstairs out of Fern.
I only got 3.
That's over.
Oh, you only got 3?
Reproduced on
This
everything.
was 1913. And it says grandmother Carl Boone, Ural Mountains.
Ural Mountains, yeah.
Isn't that in Riga?
Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
That's all I have.
Hey, Bing, can you go back to the sister-in-laws for a second so I can take a screenshot?
Yeah, I'd like to see that photo again.
They were all gorgeous.
No kidding.
So that was the bear that wasn't lost.
Let's see.
Really pretty picture.
Such an amazing.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. The 3 gorgeous ladies.
And how old would they have been in that photo? Are they all in their 30s or 20?
20s.
20s.
Mommy was 23 when she got married. They were considered an old maid at that age amongst her friends. And Annie Molly and Annie Jean wrote to Arthur when he was in the South Pacific, when he mentioned his new wife coming, going, you know, she may just be wanting to hit on you for an immigration visa to get to the United States.
what's the picture, I guess, to the right?
That's Uncle Eric. Look at him. That's
And
why
then-
I thought he owned all the pineapples everywhere.
But who's the little boy with him?
Carl.
That's Carl.
Carl. Oh,
Pineapple.
I did. I really thought Uncle Eric owned all the pineapples on the islands.
Well, he did own the company. He was a part of the company. Yeah, they started that company.
Yeah.
Spalding.
That's what he told me, so I believed him.
My favorite memory of being on Molokai with Uncle Eric was us walking along our picket fence, Uncle Eric driving by, yelling out the window, call the airport and tell them I'm coming.
Right.
Late.
Yes.
Mary, thank
always
you.
late.
Those photos, Mary, are priceless.
They are.
I've never seen that photo before, and it's been a long time since I've seen a photo of Mom, when she was young.
Right.
And I was able to take a screenshot, so I really appreciate that. That's really cool.
Those three
Absolutely.
Reppun guys certainly had an eye for the ladies.
I'd say so.
Okay, so who wants to go next?
I'm going to make dinner.
Marilyn and Will, or Emma, or Anne, you had something too?
I can share.
Okay. Yay. Hello, little fish.
Hello. So the artifact that I have is this really special little necklace pendant.
Oh,
As
yeah. Pretty.
From Auntie Missy, and the story goes that when Deki was shipped out in 1940 to go to war, he was given a gray coat, which the assumption was that he was going to fight the Nazis in Europe. And then in those 4 years that he was gone, he would write letters. And in those letters, he would describe the stars that he was seeing. And it's so funny because I never met my grandmother. I don't even know what to call her. I'm noticing in this moment, like Grandma, Jean. Feels funny. It feels good to be getting to know her more. Anyways, so she was always wondering, why is he writing to me about the stars? It's not something that we've talked about before. And eventually she figured out, because he was referencing the Southern Cross, that you could only see that constellation from the Southern Hemisphere. So she was wondering if perhaps he didn't, all of it censored. That's the backstory. So she didn't know where he was. That's the main point. And so she was figuring perhaps he wasn't actually sent to Europe. And then he sent her a bracelet made out of pendants that look like this. Auntie Missy all have different icons on them. They're all different. Maybe
Yeah.
Jane knows.
Yeah, I unmuted you.
Okay, so Emma, since she didn't know where he was for 4 years.
Right.
And she kept trying to figure it out. And when she went to the library and looked up the Southern Cross, she realized you can't see the Southern Cross from the Northern Hemisphere. And so she knew he wasn't in Europe, even though he issued a greatcoat. So that bracelet was made out of tortoise shell and
So
tropical designs. And so she knew that made her know for sure that he was in the South Pacific somewhere.
As opposed to in Europe, which I imagine was, I don't actually know too much about the history of what was going on in that part of the world at that time. I don't know if that was also a dangerous place to be. I'm sure it was to some degree, because he was going to be,
he was in Guadalcanal and New Caledonia.
Right. But he wasn't in Europe.
No, that was, I think he got those in New Caledonia, or, yeah, I think it was New Caledonia where he got that bracelet. And he was on a ship, medical ship at Guadalcanal when there was the major invasion into Guadalcanal. in 43 to 44. And at that time, when they captured the island, several medical supplies were brought onto the medical ship to be used by the Americans that they had captured in the Japanese hospital. And Fred got 2 items. One was a hypodermic needle, and the other was a trachea kit to help establish airways. We have both of those, and we're planning on giving them to the Japanese American Museum in Hilo, which is currently undergoing construction or reconstruction. But that we've talked to them, I've talked to them already, and they want to add that to their collection. But that was an interesting item that Fred got during the war, which nobody really had much discussion about. Anyway, Jane's going to show you her pendant.
Yeah. What does yours have on it?
It's a fish.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
So I guess definitely more of a tropical.
Yeah. And it feels special because I don't know too much about their relationship, but yeah, just knowing that they were writing letters and that he was wanting her to know where he was, and he was doing what he could with the censorship. I don't know, it feels quite romantic, I suppose. I don't know if it actually was, but just to have something that my grandfather sent my grandmother to try and reassure her about where he was feels really, really special. So
yeah, this is Jeffrey. And one of the interesting things about New Caledonia is while Fred was there, my father was there. Because during the war, he switched from Hawaiian Electric to Pan Am. And Pan Am was taken over by the Navy, and he was assigned to New Caledonia in the Air Transportation Corps. But while they were on the island together during the war, they never were able to get together and actually meet up with each other. But again, they were in the same place during the war.
And Emma, I have something to add to that. So these are 2 telegrams that I have that were sent by Dad to his mom, to Emily. And one of them says, sort of like a Second Amendment thing, it's like how the punctuation works. It says, well received, 2 letters, love, no comma. So it could be two love letters, 2 letters of love, or just 2 letters, love, at the end. And then the other one says, feeling fine, love. And this one, Martha and I talked about this quite a bit, because this is when I learned that Dad had actually been gravely ill during the war at a certain point and had gotten extremely sick. And I guess it was a little touch and go. And so he was letting his mother know that he was okay, which is pretty cool. I just can't believe that I'm holding these in my hand.
I think he was in Guadalcanal then, right, when he got
Right. It's actually from New Caledonia, but
okay.
That's where the signal station would have been where it was sent. So yeah.
That's amazing, Dad. One more little fact. Well, I had a really wonderful conversation with Auntie Missy to refresh my memory on this artifact. And I'm looking at my notes and remembering, as I was saying, I don't know too much about their relationship, but one other thing that I learned is that they met in Cape Cod studying the sex life of an oyster in their undergrad, which I think is just amazing. So I have that fact and this pendant.
They were undergrad.
Obviously, the fact that there were 7 kids, they understood what the sex life was about.
Or you could say that's the intellectual caliber of this family, always curious, always learning.
Yeah.
Dad had been studying oysters in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands with Northrop Castle. They went, you remember, to
Northrop, yes.
Right? Pearl and Hermes Reef and so on. And so I think that was partly an extension of that, continuing studying oysters, the sex life of oysters. Mom always used to joke. And they were there with Dr. Paul Galtzoff, Paul Simon Galtzoff, who Paul's middle name is after Dr. Galtzoff, Russian scientist in Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute.
Yeah.
I got to meet him when I was in college. I went to Cape Cod and met Dr. Galtzoff, and got to hear about the stories of the Don Cossack Choir would go to his house in Woods Hole, and they would have wild singing and vodka and whatnot. But pretty yeah.
And John, on this list that I showed earlier of Hanahaole, the third grade is Northrop Castle.
Northrop Castle, who it was impossible to get very close to him, because when he came to visit, he had the craziest laugh of any human being on earth. It would start off. We wouldn't even make it into the living room. We'd rolling, all of us kids rolling on the floor because his laugh was just like out of control.
Northrop and Myrtle
And his-
Castle on my 18th birthday, when I arrived, took me on their little airplane, flew me to the island of Lanai to see the hospital I was born in. They thought that was the coolest thing. I stayed with them out on the volcano in their house.
Wow.
And I mean, these people had a house that was in a tree, and we were sitting there that I still have pictures of me feeding cows and all kinds of things. Again, animals always got me. They had Siamese cats that would walk through trees through the house that was on the patio up in the tree up there. And Northrop and Myrtle were just something else. And they decided they had to take me on a plane ride on my 18th birthday to see where I was born, and the island of Lanai. And we went to the beach, and we saw the old Dole Pineapple Hospital, where my father, diligently saving money, went to put his wife on a free Hawaiian Airlines flight, ready to deliver to his brother, who was the resident at the Dole Pineapple Hospital, so he could get a free delivery. And so that's why I was born on that hospital. And it was, I mean, the Castles were just such a funny people. I mean, that little vacation, when they took me and said, we're going to show you where you were born, what a trip that was. I still have pictures. It just cracked me up. They were just the funniest people, but they loved the Reppuns. And so I got to see where I was born thanks to them. I mean, this little Piper Apache, we went on this little two-plane, small little airplane and landed. I mean, it was quite exciting on their little personal airplane. They flew me there. That was quite an exciting trip.
One comment about the Northrop Castles. When we visited them one time at Volcano, their house had a huge open fire pit in the middle of the house. And you sat around the fire pit and talked across the fire. And it was incredible, because you couldn't believe how bloody hot it was sitting next to the fire at the volcano. It was great.
And then Myrtle doing her pottery. And she had the big pottery downstairs, and in downtown, she sold all that beautiful pottery. She was a potter. She showed me her spinning wheel and all that stuff. What a couple. They were just incredible. Then the story about them, I mean, go back and find their history, how they flew across to California, two of them. And Myrtle, I think it was a Piper Apache. I can't remember what the aircraft was, but it was quite a pioneer trip. And because she was so tiny, she was able to crawl down below and take care of the engines and the motors and the flights. They were quite an adventurous couple. They were something else.
Okay, so Emily, maybe would you like to take your turn here?
Yes.
I will cede my time. I don't have any I get an F. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sorry, educators. Nice to see everyone though.
So let's see. Who else is on the list here? Will or there you go. Hello, Will. Go for it. You're up.
I gotta do a screen share, so let's see.
There he is. Uh-huh.
I see that? Sort of.
Yes.
So
Can you open the image?
It's a little small, Will. We see you like you're about like 2 inches tall. I don't know if you can open the image. Yeah. Sorry, do you need technical support, Will?
Screen sharing is paused. I want to resume share. Okay, wait, it's clearly not working. New share? What if I open it first?
Yeah, I think you have to open it first.
And then hit share. Got it.
There you go.
Yeah, that's me. So I don't know if you guys, some of you know this. I stress with a bunch of you, I think, but later in life, I've suddenly become accident prone. And this is from, I think, 4 or 5 years ago now. The first time I broke my arm, I wandered out of my hotel room, my hospital room, and I think maybe Mom, did you find these? My mom, yeah, mom saw them first, and she said, "You're not gonna believe what. You gotta go look down the hall." And so I walked down, and they have these mounted in the 6th or 7th floor of Queens on the orthopedics ward. How do I go to them? Oh, great technical support here. Come on, there we go. No way. Next. When? This might be more difficult than I thought.
You could try just sharing your whole screen, instead of just the image, and then you can flip through the photos. Anyway.
Look at desktop.
Oh yeah.
Now? Yep.
That was in Queens too, wasn't it?
Also in Queens.
Yeah.
But these are splints right outside my hospital room, and there's a little plaque next to it.
Drum roll.
You have to squint, but it says these interesting old wooden splints belong to Dr. C.F. Reppun. According to modern orthopedists, they are remarkably well shaped.
That is amazing.
So a series of splints that I guess they use for broken must be wrists and forearms, which is what happened to me. I broke my forearm in a couple places. And then also, this isn't good to share earlier, but they had this, which is again a little hard to read, but it says rare old bandage or sling made by Johnson & Johnson, dated 1917, used by Dr. C.F. Reppun during World War I when he was with the American Red Cross. I don't have a great picture of the bandage, but this is one of the side angles of it. They have an actual bandage that came back from Russia and Vladivostok with them on that boat. So even today, this is almost 100 years later. It probably would have been actually very close to 100 years after they started their journey. We still have these artifacts floating around on our island here. And you encounter them in sometimes the most surprising ways. That's what I got.
That's fantastic, Will. Wow.
Oh, can we get a hold of any of these shared objects and pictures? Josh, maybe you could be the curator and get to all of us.
If you guys want to email me the pictures, if you haven't already, I can just put them into a slideshow and then send that around.
That would be really, really nice.
Yeah.
Well, can we just walk in and see them?
No, you got to break your arm first.
No, but can anybody just walk in?
They're in the back. I have a little addendum to that story, because when my mom was in the hospital at Queens, well, I don't even know when, on that same floor was, remember Sophie Judd Clough? I don't know if any of you knew her, but her daughter's daughter was up on that floor having a surgical procedure, and right outside of her room was that photograph of Dr. Reppun. It was so weird.
I had an equally weird moment. Anne, I don't know if you remember this, but back in the day, you and I took the mules down to Kalaupapa together. And I think we might have been with your mom and dad. Maybe not, I don't remember that. But when we got down to the bottom and we started the tour of Kalaupapa, the guide took us to this little first building, and we walked into the building, and there was a sort of memorial shrine set up to Dad, with his picture and magazines and photographs with him with patients and stuff. And I was just like, what? Where did this come from? I had no idea that he even spent time. Yeah, there's Anne's watercolor painting that she did of that trip down to Kalaupapa.
Oh my God, is
that
that
was,
my dad in the little head thingy with the glasses?
yes, it
And
is.
in Hawkeye yellow, of course.
And Hawkeye, of
Are
course.
we unmuted?
Yeah.
We're unmuted.
Okay, Charlie and I used to fly down to Kalaupapa with Dad. He was flying the plane when he went down to visit patients. Do you remember, Charlie?
Yeah.
Was Charlie there? Anyway.
That's why, Jeffrey, that's why your confirmation name is Damien, because of Father Damien from Kalaupapa, because you were born on Molokai.
No kidding.
No.
Oh. Huh.
Charlie,
You know that?
you gonna say something,
Yeah.
Charlie?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, but Dad took care of a patient in Kahalu who had Hansen's disease, but didn't want to, he didn't want him to go to Kalaupapa. He wanted them to stay. He wanted to stay with his family, so he took care of him in his house during that whole time.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I didn't know.
Wow.
Amazing.
Ah.
Will, thank you, Will. That's pretty priceless. I remember wearing a splint like that when I broke my arm on the Big Island, and Dad had to fly me back to Oahu for surgery. That was the splint that I wore all the way across. It was amazing. Yeah.
Buy that same one in the glass case too. We can put a little addendum under the note, worn by Doc.
Right. Right.
I thought it was interesting to see the package.
Can we?
It explained how to use it. You didn't need packaging. It was just explained right there on the
Right. So Eric.
Uncle Josh. Uncle Josh.
Yes. Hello.
Can we go next real quick? My mom wants to share
Yeah,
because
sure.
it's related to that.
Okay, wait, Kelohi, before you start, there's some other machine open. There's some other machine open in your house, because every time you unmute, you're echoing across.
It's
the
not. I checked everything.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll deal with it. Go for it.
Okay.
Kelohi, can you just turn down the volume a little bit while Auntie Lori is talking?
Can you hear us?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, go.
Okay, since everybody's just talking about injuries and stuff, I just wanted to share that when I was like, I don't know, what are you laughing at, Josh? Oh, when I forget if I was like 7 or something like that. I was playing on a neighbor's rusty sliding board, and I split my skin open on my foot. It just came apart, and I could see the inside of my eyes. Screaming. But anyway, they took me to see your father, and he was really scary because he was so big. I was just a little kid, and he was so big. I remember he had a red and white aloha shirt on, and they took me to his office, and he stuck a needle in my foot and stitched up my foot. I still have the scar, but I don't think anybody can see it. It's right there. I just want to show my scar. That's my sharing. But I everybody's talking about the jewelry and everything, and it made me think of Paul and I were at home saying, what can we bring? We don't, you know, we don't know. We couldn't find the little carved box that we have that has KP.
Cyrillic alphabet K. What looks like KP is KR in Russian.
Yeah, for folks' grandfather's
Carl Reppun.
Little carved box.
Carol,
It's somewhere, but when we redid the house, everything got packed away. So, but talking about the jewelry, I know that either Dad or Missy has given me, I have tortoiseshell combs for my hair. I figured if we're having something next year, then I'll bring those things.
But I think so far, Lori, I think your scar is the best artifact so far.
Her scar, you meant a scartifact, right?
Artifact.
Yes. Yeah. She takes it with her everywhere she goes. It's so treasured.
Hey, Lori, I have my companion story. When I was at Ben Parker, and I think I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade, I hated school. So I went to the school nurse and I told her I had a sore throat. And she, you know what she did? She sent me to Dad. So I walked alone all the way from Ben Parker to Dad's office, scared crapless the entire way. And he knew immediately as soon as I opened my mouth that I was faking, and I got just totally ripped for that. So I know he was scariest person on planet Earth. Oh my God.
He was scary. And then when I finally met Paul and I went to your folks' house, it didn't seem all that scary anymore.
Right. Yeah. That's a great share. That's great. So Eric, you guys are up.
So a while, probably around 5th grade, I don't remember the exact genesis of the conversation and how it happened, but I was at the big house and talking with the key, and he asked me this question that I didn't understand the answer to. It didn't make any sense. And I had made some snarky comment about Russia and the evil empire, quoting Ronald Reagan. And the key's comment was, well, how do you know they're evil? And I said, the president said they are. And he said, well, have you ever spoken with a Russian? And I said, no. You know, he says, well, then you should meet some Russians and speak with some Russians. And I said, okay. And he said, do you speak Russian? To which, again, I didn't even understand the concept. I just thought Russian was English with a funny accent. And he told me over the course of many years, he kept pushing me. He says, you need to study Russian. You need to study Russian. So at Punahou, they weren't offering it and had not offered it for many years. And I started to push. I talked to my deans multiple times. I actually had this, there was a period of time where there was a rhythm where I was, you know, every day, I think it was my junior year coming, every time we had chapel, I would walk back from chapel with one of the deans and pester them. And that was my, like, once a cycle of saying, you know, I want to take Russian. And they interrupted me one day as we were walking back towards Alexander Hall, and they said, yeah, we got you a Russian teacher. So that was where my Russian journey started. And I was always sort of telling the key, okay, here's what we're learning now, here's where we're at. And so junior year of college, I decided I was going to go over and study over there. And I don't have the artifact. I really, really wish I had kept this, but I don't know. It might be buried in a box somewhere, but it's probably gone. So getting mail while I was living in Russia was a really big deal. Mom sent a couple of care packages, and a few other people sent letters. And they would be dated, you know, August or September, and they would arrive in November or December. There was one care package, I can't remember what all was in it, but when I opened it, there was a teddy bear that was inside, and the teddy bear had been opened, and the stuffing had been checked, and the jar of peanut butter had been unscrewed, and the foil seal had been taken off, and a scoop had been taken out of the peanut butter. But all of these things would take months to get to me, and this one time, I got this letter. It was hand delivered to me. It wasn't waiting in the international office like most other things were, and it was this 2-page hand scrawled in Ducky's very distinctive handwriting. This 2-page letter. But what was really interesting about, I mean, this was the year that he passed away. What was really fascinating was that the envelope that it came in did not have the sticker on it that I had I guess I'd either pre-printed these or made a sheet of these for Mom and others to give out, that had my Russian address where I was at the university in Nizhny Novgorod. What it said was, in English, it just said Eric Reppun, Nizhny University, Russia. And that was it. And it arrived in my hands, hand delivered by the rector of the university, kind of one of the directors in the university, hand delivered by the rector to my dorm room in 6 days. From the time that Ducky dated it and put a stamp on the envelope and mailed it to it arriving in my hand was 6 days, when everything else had taken multiple months, and it had not been opened, or at least I couldn't tell that it had been opened. It was still sealed properly, it appeared to be. And so I read that letter, and then trying to think, I think it was very shortly after that I jumped on a train and went up to St. Pete, and it was while I was visiting a friend up in St. Petersburg that I got the phone call. I'm at this random Russian house, and really nobody should have known how to even find me because I didn't leave word as to where I was or where this friend's place was. And the phone call came from the university. Somehow the KTV knew where I was, but the phone call came to the house to tell me the news. And then I got a letter later on from Mom, or an email from Mom with all the extra details, but the news that Ducky had passed. And it was all in this weird, but yeah, 6 days was all it took for him to give me this weird address without the proper information, and not in Cyrillic, just in his scrawl on an envelope.
It would be pretty amazing if you could find that. If it's
I don't know that I kept the envelope. I know I have the letter somewhere buried, but I don't know that I kept the envelope, which to me was just the more amazing, like, craziness of the whole thing. But
Eric, what was the missive that you said you at the very beginning? You said something about.
I was probably about 5th grade when I was doing something, and I had made some snarky comment to him about something about Russia.
No, when you first went to Russia, I found recently when I was going through old papers something Ducky had typed for you about being in Russia.
Or going to
be in, when you were going to Russia, when you were first going.
I don't remember.
I'll make a copy and send it to you.
That'd be great.
That's a great share, Eric. That's a great story. One wonders if Dad was conjuring some sort of 6-day courier there, right? Yeah, in the way that mail used to be delivered.
Yeah.
In older times.
Josh, I have one more story that I just heard about Dad. This is a neighbor of ours who lives up in Waihe. I don't know if I probably wouldn't tell you their name, but they this couple, she had a health issue, liver, something wrong with the liver, something like that. Anyway, Dad took care of her, but they couldn't have any kids because of that. So like weeks after taking care of her, he calls them up and says, "Do you want to adopt a kid?" And so he they adopted a kid that he told them about. And then a year later, he calls them up again, "Do you want to adopt a kid?" And so all three of their kids were through Dad arranging for them to adopt them.
Wow. Wow.
So I don't know the story behind, the kids' mothers, what was happening there, but that was in his practice, right?
Charlie, in the safe, I have a couple of documents about adopted kids, about their real parents, and I haven't known what to do with them. I'm getting them out and giving them to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would
And does anybody know where the rest of the deer is?
What?
That wasn't behind the wall?
Oh, Uncle Josh's deer?
Deer moose.
Oh.
Deer that was.
That's not a deer, it's a moose. Emma gave that to me for my birthday present. It's one of the great
No, not
birds
that.
ever.
No,
You're
not
talking about
that.
the deer in Dad's office. You're talking about the
Dad's
deer in
office.
Dad's
Oh, I
office.
thought you were talking about the moose over my shoulder. Never mind.
No, the deer in Dad's office. The Pop Warner kids would go. Every kid in Kaneohe remembers Dad asking them to cough. That's what I always get reminded of. And they're going for free physicals. But they would all go in the room. They would all go in the room behind to look for the back end of the deer. That was it. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so
We
Evan.
haven't heard from Evan.
Who's left?
Evan.
Yeah. Evan and Ann. And Cheryl. Yeah.
And Bink.
And Bink.
And
Hi, Tina.
Oh,
Hey, Zena.
yeah, of course, Bink. Sorry.
And Wog also. Don't forget Wog.
And Wog.
Wog was first.
All right, here we go. Evan, you want to go?
I'll go, if you don't mind, I'll go last because I actually have something that might be like the last piece I want to share might actually be nice as a final share piece.
Cool. Okay.
Okay, so I have 2 shares. First of all, this has been in my bathroom since whenever, a few years now. And I have to say that it's something that I hold to because there's a million pictures in my life of Bink and Alma in the taro fields and me in the taro fields, even Raven in the taro fields. So I love that this came to me and just looking at your faces. So anyway, is Paul still there? Paul, this is like the best story. So when I look at this, I'm like, oh my God, so here's my story. I'm a brand new bride. I go up to the farm because I don't have anything to do. And I'm sitting in the rows where the tapioca and the papaya are. And I'm got a stick and I'm pulling up yams. Lori, I think, said, oh, you can pull yams up out of the earth. So I'm sitting with my legs like this and I'm like doing the earth. And Paul walks by and he goes, oh, I don't know. Centipedes live in that, and centipedes live down there. And I'm like, you're young, you're completely don't understand anything. Anyway, so I'm digging in. Sure enough, I come across this gigantic centipede nest, and the centipedes go like all over my legs. I'm screaming, and Paul is just like dying of laughter because it's like you get the young bride, you're trying to tell her the truth about the land. Does she listen to you? Anyway, so when I look at this, I think of Paul telling me, hey, there's centipedes in that earth. So that's my good story about Paul. And then, of course, Charles, your face is just so beautiful in this picture. You guys look really of the land. And I just remember the many counsels that you gave me and Josh when I look at this beautiful picture of you. So this is one of my current mementos of this family. My second memento, I'm like so glad that all you guys are there. Evan, are you still there? Where is Evan? Anyway, so everybody, Ducky touched my memento, Missy, Paul, Charlie, all the Bink and the Wog, everybody has touched my memento. Okay, are you ready? So think about the big house. Think about all those dinners. And if you'll think like kitchen
I
window.
got Will.
Well, okay, are you ready? So here's my memento. It's one of the napkins from the napkin basket. And to think everybody, many of the people sitting here wiped their face on this very napkin. So when Ducky died, Emma got a few things. And one of the things that she got was the basket of napkins. So I treasure this napkin as a direct link to sitting next to Vivian, to sitting next to Missy. Kealohi, you're asking Auntie Missy, can I have a sip of your Diet Coke? I mean, there's 100,000 memories from being around that table. And so I value this a great deal.
She still drinks Diet Coke, you know.
Anyway, so here we have the family memento. Thank you very much.
That's great. That's great, Anne. That's a great share. I love that photo too.
Oh, of the boys?
Yeah, of the three of them, including Harvey.
Yeah.
That's great.
The honorary brother.
Okay. Vivian, do you want to go? And then,
Sure.
yeah.
Fix it.
Okay.
One momento, please.
Charlie wants to know if Anne ever washed the napkin.
I wash the napkin all the time. Look how sturdily it's held up. Even the little edging, like, does anybody know where these napkins came from? Look at this beautiful edging. Somebody's serger did this in Christmas colors. Anyway, I don't know. Yep, I've washed it.
Okay. So, Bink, do you have my object to share? Bink?
Yeah, he's showing it on screen.
Oh,
he's holding
okay.
it up.
I can't see.
Yeah,
on.
it's right here.
Okay.
Not very clear, but it's a ring.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so that's my object to share. That ring, we believe that Carl used that ring when he proposed to Emily. It was their engagement ring, and possibly even his father before him. Miss, you can correct me if I'm not remembering correctly, or we actually don't know, but we're pretty sure that Carl used it for Emily's engagement, and then gave it to his oldest son, Fred, who used it when he proposed to Jean. And then it got passed down to Charlie, and he used that ring, and I wore it for a while when he proposed to me. And then we passed it to our oldest son, and Bink used it to propose to Zena. So it's an old ring, and can you show it one more time? It's very beautiful.
I don't know if you guys can see too well, but so when it came to me, Zena's dad is actually a jewelry artist, and he makes all kinds of stuff, including rings. But I couldn't take it to him really to ask him about the history of the ring, and even though I wanted to find out about it, and it just so happened one of my classmates in school, her dad was also a jewelry artist. So I took it to him, and he said that it looked like a style of ring that was made in Russia in the mid 1800s, and the blue is kind of like it's a glass enamel that they would make those fancy Russian eggs with. I don't know if you've seen the pictures of those. So it's the same style of enamel that they did on those. So it's probably from 1860, 70, somewhere around there.
Is it a ruby in the center?
Yeah.
It's a red a red.
Yeah, ruby
It is red.
and then little diamonds.
And little diamonds
It's
around
quite
the ruby.
worn.
Wow, Vivian, what a amazing share. I had no idea about this ring,
Oh.
the way it was passed down. Wow.
I hope
that-
you cleaned it well between, COVID and all. You got sanitation.
And actually,
nobody wears it right now.
Actually, after Dad gave it to Charlie, Dad and Mom and I were on a trip when I worked for Pan Am. We were in England, and Dad bought her. I can't take it off. Sorry. Show me where to.
Where's your?
Right here.
Open your
Which
hand.
one? Mom's sticking middle finger at you all. Can you see it?
It doesn't matter. I can't take it off because I'm too heavy. But he bought her another ring. She saw it as we were walking along the street one day in London, and it does have a ruby in it also. So that was her second engagement ring after you got the last one.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, wow, Vivian, great.
Okay.
Cheryl would like to go.
Jewelry. Okay, since we're doing jewelry, I did not have, obviously, the pleasure of meeting Josh's parents at all. But I understand that in 1981, Missy, you have to say if that's the right year, that Jean and Fred recreated the trip across Russia that Glenn shared with us when we began the conversation. Was it 1981?
No.
It was Charlie and
Charlie. It wasn't. It was Charlie and Dan.
Oh, okay. It was Charlie, but he bought for your mom. Your mom was alive.
She passed away in 81.
Yeah, but she bought for Josh's mom a beautiful amber necklace. And when Josh and I got married in Italy and we came back to Hawaii, Missy gave it to me. And so this is my artifact that I treasure very much. That's it.
That's amazing. I had forgotten about that.
Yes, I did not.
That's very cool. Very cool. Okay, thank you, Cheryl. Bink, do you want to go? Let's see. Who do we have left? Marilyn, were you going to present something, or you're still muted, Marilyn?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Oh, you're back muted again. Marilyn, you're muted.
Okay, now
There you go. Yep.
Will has to leave, and Tommy wasn't able to be here today, but maybe next time. So I just wanted to say that, for many years, I would meet people and we would be talking, and I wouldn't know too much about them and they wouldn't know too much about me. But then when they learned what my last name was, they would say, "Are you related to Fred Reppun?" And I would say, "Yes, he's my father-in-law." And they would say, "Oh, well, he delivered me." Or I used to go to see him when he was a doctor, and I would see pictures of the boys in their baseball uniforms and football uniforms on the wall. And they all knew him, and they knew of the family. And it still happens today. So I just wanted to say that I guess once a Reppun, always a Reppun. That name triggers memories. for many people.
Marilyn, that's great. I had a moment about 3 years ago at the Apple store in the back of the store at Ala Moana where I sold somebody something, I don't know, an accessory or an iPhone or something like that. And I handed him my card because he'd been a very nice person. And he took one look at it and suddenly shouted all across the store, "Your father delivered me." And it was just like, all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, you know, everybody turned around in the store. It was one of those moments.
Yeah.
So I think we've all had moments like that.
For me too.
Yeah, that's very cool. Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you. Can I just add on to Marilyn's story that working at both Queens and Straub as a Caucasian woman from the mainland, people would give me a lot of trouble, and then they'd see my name tag and they're like, "Hey, you're Fred Reppun's girl." And I'm like, "Oh, I married his younger son." "Oh, okay." Like it was an entrance that didn't exist except for the name.
Yeah.
Well, let me just add that when I started working at Mission Houses Museum, 1991, 2 years before the anniversary of the overthrow, the 100th year anniversary of the overthrow, I always had my full name on my name tag, but you know, it got in the way in some ways because people would come in to do research and they would say, "Oh, you're a Reppun?" And they would assume that if I'm a Reppun, I must be an activist. And you know, librarians, we pledge to be neutral in all ways, especially politically. So I ended up actually removing my last name from my name tag. Didn't interfere with the research process. But yeah, that's just a story I have to share.
Thank you, Marilyn. Let's see. So, Bink and Zena.
Okay. Well, just to to finish the story that I started earlier, I actually did ask Zena's dad for her hand in marriage, or I asked for his blessing, I guess, after checking about the history of the ring, so just to clear that up. And it was always actually Zena's dream to have her dad make her wedding ring and her engagement ring. So we had two traditions that were kind of at odds with each other, and so we reconciled by having him make another ring because this one is so old and we didn't want her to wear it every day. So we got to design and make the ring with him, and we incorporated some elements of the original ring. And so there is a ruby on it, and then there's a blue stone, which is a sapphire, to get the blue color, and there's a diamond from her grandmother in the middle. So that the elements of it lived on in that ring too. But what we wanted to share, or what Zena wanted to share, was kind of Emma's thing too, and Jane's thing. So this pendant is part of that bracelet, and actually connected with the whole story of Zena's dad. He actually, Antimisi gave him all of the pieces of the pendant, and he made the jump rings so that they could be made into actual pendants, whereas they were just bracelet pieces before. So he fitted them with these little rings.
He said it was very difficult because he was soldering. He's a silver and goldsmith, and so he was soldering with his torch, and the whole time like biting his nails and fretting that he would somehow damage the tortoise shell, but it seems to have held up okay. So he said it was one of the more difficult jobs of setting a veil he's ever had.
So that's that story. And then I just have one more small thing. I don't really have a story about these, but they are some leather lederhosen. Yeah, and I mean, these things are so stiff they can pretty much stand up on their own. And I don't know where they came from. I don't know the story about them, like elk horn buckle on them. And I was made to wear these when I did the Castle Performing Arts program in 5th grade and sing Edelweiss in front of hundreds of people. And yeah, talk about scars, Auntie Laurie.
Yeah, Bink, I've got the same scars. I had to wear them as well. Yes. Oh my
What is
God.
the story of these pants?
I don't know, Martha. Do you know how they came into the family?
I think through Pop.
Oh, so they're from the Engel side.
They're from the Engel side because, I mean, they were the German side and Pop grew up, everything was off Deutsch, so.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Instrument of torture, for sure.
I see.
So, Bink, do they still fit?
Hey, you know, if short shorts ever make a comeback.
Yeah, you could just turn into that guy in Kahaluu who just runs around wearing his lederhosen all the time.
I have not seen this guy, but now I really want to.
Yeah.
They're good for welding when you're on your knees.
Yeah, I was gonna say they make great weed-eating pants if they were longer.
Yeah.
That's great, Bing. Thank you. That's great. So I think we've come down to the end here, and that would be you, Evan. As for the final presentation, here we are right on time at 6:48, just as we thought.
Kello, he didn't say anything.
Mom.
Hello, you're up.
There you
Oh,
go.
I don't have anything to say. My mom thinks this is like democratic family. She wants everybody to say something.
For once, you have nothing to say.
Your life had nothing to say.
Oh gosh.
That's impossible, Kealohi. Never heard such a thing.
Oh wait, did we miss? Yeah. Okay. So Kealohi.
No, I don't have a thing, but you know, if I don't know, Auntie Missy, you were cleaning out closet or whatever, maybe a year ago or so, or maybe 8 months, and you sent the keys, the thank you card from his funeral when he passed away, and I have that on my icebox, and that's always a reminder for me of the many like lessons that I learned from him, and you know, just to always be aware and to advocate for the underdog, to be justice and liberty for all. And so that I appreciate that, and that's something that I hang on to, make sure I see every day. But my stories are the same. Like I faked coughs and stuff and was taken to his office trying to get out of school, and like he was like, get out of here, go, no, Laurie, take her back home, like she's fine, drop her back off at school. And but I tried all that stuff, and I remember one time coming home from college, I was standing in the line at the airport in Hilo, and just kind of standing there on my backpack on, and that back when the lines were long, and this guy was standing in front of me, and he kind of turned around, and then he did a double take, and then he turned back around and was facing forward, and I thought, well, that was weird. And he did it again. He turned around and he goes, are you a Reppun? And I was like, what? Like, are you kidding me? Out of all the people standing in this airport, and I'm standing right behind you, and you double take and look at my face, and you're gonna ask me if I'm a Reppun? and yeah, I am. And he was like, he had this story, the same thing, oh, your grandfather delivered me, I'm going back to Molokai. And so we had a conversation, but that has happened to me like all my life. And at Punahou, it happens all the time. People remember everybody. No, must be your uncle. Uncle Jai, I always get, oh, is Josh your brother? I'm like, no, not my brother, my uncle. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah. But I think this is the funniest story that happened to me recently, and it kind of, it's just a weird one, is that I've gotten, the Dr. Reppun thing all my life, but I think it was just after I'd actually finished my doctorate, and so people were teasing me about being Dr. Reppun, because of course, Evan has his doctorate, but he's Dr. Vici. And so I'm Dr. Reppun. And I had gone down to the Ala Moana Satellite City Hall to do my registration for my car. And I was waiting for so long. And these people are so inefficient. And I finally get up to the counter, and it's this old Japanese lady. And she's behind the counter, and, you know, she doesn't even look at me. No, doesn't even glance up. So how can I help you? And you slide your papers in, and you're supposed to like not have conversation or whatever. And she grabs my paper, and she looks up. She goes, Dr. Reppun. And I had just gotten my doctorate, and I was so confused because I thought, how do you know that I just got? And then after a while, I was like, oh crap. No, she's talking about my grandpa. I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, my grandfather. And she just started cracking up laughing. Anyway, that's my one funny story about always being, you know, asked about Dr. Reppun.
That's awesome, Kilroy. Thank you. Thank you.
One comment about Dr. Rappun's offices. When he was on Molokai, he was following another doctor, the doctor who was leaving. He was following around the office in the early morning clinic, and the doctor would see a patient and tell the nurse, oh, he needs to have ADT. And he kept using this phrase. And Fred went, after they had finished rounds, he asked him, what is that ADT? I've never heard of that. He said, any damn thing. And so Fred would use that on occasion with his patients who had nothing wrong with them, just ADT.
ADT pill.
ADT pill, sugar pill.
Yeah, that's great, Glenn.
I have one last thing, Josh.
Oh, you have something very special, yeah?
This we got it.
At our dinner table, it was always look it up. This is what we put up in 1925 or something like that.
That's awesome, Charlie. That dictionary weighs like 10 pounds.
Yeah.
I gotta say, that was a lot of my childhood, was looking things up and being like, how do I look them up when I don't know how to spell them?
Yes.
And yeah, that was the mystery, and you just had to figure it out.
Wog, were you? Wog, were you? No.
Hmm?
Were you going to present, or are you?
Something else?
That was the picture. I was gonna share the picture of the wearing the boots and the coat. Something else?
Oh, you have it?
We did it.
Yeah, we did it. The first thing.
Right. Okay, sorry.
What happened? I had a couple other pictures of Bink and I at two different parades. One Kaneohe Christmas parade, and I think I was like 3, and we rode in the back of a Suzuki Sidekick with the key. He was the Grand Marshal. But that was one of my early memories in general.
Oh wow!
Was being in the parade with the key. Yeah, I was 3. It was in 1990. This is another picture. I'll take pictures of these and send them to Bink so he can add them to the slideshow.
Yeah, that's great.
And then we went to Lanai with him, and we did another parade where he was honorary marshal, and we rode in a golf cart with him. Yeah.
Short parade.
Yeah, a really short parade through, I think, like right down the block in the middle of Lanai City, right around that one block, and that was about it.
Right.
Gosh, since Karen's still there, I just, we've spent a lot of time talking about the key, but I want to say one time I was down at DLNR and dealing with one of those bureaucratic people on the other side of the counter. And when she saw my name, she goes, oh, and I expected to hear, oh, you're Dr. Rappun's son. She said, were you related to Eric Reppun? And I said, yeah, it was my uncle. And she just perked up, Japanese woman, and she had been working, I think, with Uncle Eric when he was maybe the land use commission or Department of Agriculture. And the thing that really struck me, she said, he was the kindest person I ever worked for.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to put that out there, that these three brothers had a huge impact on all of us, but certainly all of the community that they touched from all over the place. All three of them. And I just wanted to put that out there to everybody.
That's great, John.
I got a story about Uncle Eric. Somebody who worked with him at DLNR, being out in the field, I don't remember what island was on, but saying how he was the salt of the earth, because when they all probably eat, Uncle Eric would wash the dishes. And at that time, he was head of division of Department of Agriculture and Forestry, I think it was called back then. But he would wash the dishes when they were probably eating. He said, this guy was salt of the earth, Uncle Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, Evan, you're going to bring this to a close.
All righty. So I was looking through a bunch of my things that I've kept over the years, reading letters that Ducky wrote to me when I was in college, my first year, and that was kind of difficult to get through, actually. But one of the things, and it kind of is confirmed by everybody, and all the sharing that's gone on here is even down to the dictionary right at the end, right? It's the power of the words. And that's one thing that I really value that Ducky helped to pass along to me, is the importance of words, and not just the words in the dictionary, but all the words that go together. And so as I was going through some stuff, I found some things that he wrote where I read it and I was just like, holy shit, who was this guy? Just incredible use of language, and so much that can be communicated about who he was, and what he saw during his time, and what was important to him, and just how he used words. And so I came across a couple of different things, and I just wanted to read a few paragraphs of each. And the first two come from this, which I know many people have had and have read in the past, so some of you may recognize what I read, but this was the Hawaii Medical Journal's memorial issue for Ducky in April of 1995. And this is the big, the thing that got me super excited. And I don't know if anybody has any information around this, but I know Bob and Susan Pereira, who I just remember being at the San Jumis at New Year's time. And Uncle Bob Pereira was running the numbers games on the Rose Bowl and stuff the whole time. But they were orchid breeders, and so they bred this orchid called Rhodoricidium.
It's 19 hours.
Memoria, Rhodoricidium Memoria J.I. Frederick Reppun, MD. And it's been registered with the Royal Horticultural Society of London, but I can't find, I don't know, I want to find out where we can get one or some, because I would love to have them and propagate them. So I don't know whatever happened to this, but that was kind of inspiring. Inside of this article, Ducky published an article that he wrote called From Prontolin to Biaxin, the Half Century of Antibiotics. And so at the time, 1995, this was after 55 years of practice, right? And it's been 25 years and a few months since Ducky passed away. So just to read an excerpt from the very end of this piece. He writes, "What a remarkable half century it has been. Actually, 3/4 of a century since I was born in 1913. I was in 2 world wars. As a child in the Ural Mountains of Imperial Russia, I remember seeing the first clear glass incandescent light bulb invented by Thomas Edison. As my physician father, my mother, and my younger brother and I escaped from the Bolsheviks during the Russian Revolution and arrived in Vladivostok, thanks to the American Red Cross and the American Expeditionary Force in Siberia. I remember seeing a Model T Ford car and can still smell in my imagination the strange odor of gasoline exhaust. In 1925, as a boy living in Kahaluu next to Libby McNeil and Libby's huge pineapple cannery, I remember a neighbor's new Altwater Kent full of static wireless radio. That same year, I remember seeing with wonder a small seaplane circling over our Kahaluu house and landing in Kaneohe Bay, and then taking off to windward. The age of radio and of airplanes had begun. The age of black and white television ensued, followed by color. Much earlier, we attended movies from flickers to full color. Jet engines on planes supplanted the propellers, and finally the electronic age came into being. The changes and the new things came even faster and faster. Finally, just as I reached retirement age, the practice of medicine changed, and I was glad that I would not have to be part of the provider, consumer, bottom line business, third party, intervener bureaucracy that it seems the healing profession will have to submit to unless rescued by organized medicine. Biaxin, the latest? Never. The bacteria are gaining on us and the viruses are thriving.
Amen.
Aloha to those dedicated physicians who follow in our footsteps, healers per primum, businessmen and women per force. Away. And this is a picture that accompanies that, and it's of him 1939 on his way to deliver his first baby in Boston.
Oh.
Then the next piece, it's called The Physician is Patient, the Thallium Treadmill Stress Test. And I want to read the very first opening paragraph so you know what it's about, and then I'll read the end. So the preface begins, I don't think it's often that a physician describes how it feels to be a patient. We order tests on our patients glibly without realizing what it's like for a patient to undergo the procedure. The following is a personal experience that both physicians and patients might enjoy reading. I'll not hide names or places because the facility and its staff deserve the praise I intend to give them. The facility, of which we in Hawaii can be very proud, is Queens Medical Center in Honolulu and its nuclear medicine imaging department. So he goes on through this page and a half or so description of his visit, which is, includes a whole variety of words that could come up in dinner table conversation. There's, he very deft use of the word subterranean. I like that one. But he gets towards the end, and his final paragraph, again, in classic Ducky style, the healthcare gurus talk about how expensive these are, he's talking about MRIs, how expensive these are, that they should be rationed in a way or another in order to keep costs of medical care down as they relate to GNP. I thought to myself, now that we have these marvels, why not let them be used for the benefit of all people, rich, poor, young or old, as specifically indicated by professionals trained in their use? I looked around me. What a marvel of adjunctive engineering. What a marvel of staffing with trained experts, each of whom knows exactly what to do in small or big ways, putting common people to work in the service of humankind. What a contrast to the workers in a military tank or bomber factory who produce nothing of lasting value to anyone. What a contrast to what I had seen in a Siberian city hospital in 1992. Excellent and caring physicians working only with their 5 senses, without one CT scan in the city the size of Honolulu, not to speak of, dreamed of, a non-existent MRI.
That was what? That was.
And so one of the things that I read is something that he wrote to me right before he passed away. And I'm not going to share that, but it kind of, it showed his incredible intuition with people. And I think that I came across this too. This is a letter, but it was not addressed to anybody. It's something my mom gave me. So I know, Mom, you've got it somewhere. It's a letter that wasn't addressed to anybody. I think what he did is, I think Ducky wrote this to write it. And the date is Wednesday, 2nd of October, 1963. And I think that this says something significant to kind of bring it together about just kupuna and ancestors and the voyage to Hawaii and everybody who's come before and everybody who's shared. And also kind of prophetic, you know, with everything that's happening in the world, like COVID and everything like that, but also just race, right? Race, culture, the way people treat each other. So this was powerful to me. And it reads, Wednesday, 2 October 1963, at 2 p.m. today at Oahu Cemetery in the beautiful valley of Nu'uanu in Honolulu, Jean and I, together with our eldest son, Charlie, and with sister-in-law Molly and her daughter Nina, were witness to the internment of our beloved parents. The sun was bright, the breeze from the distant Pali cool and gentle, as we stood in the shade of a great tree and watched the men place 2 bronze urns side by side in a small stone vault in the ground. One contained the mingled ashes of Carl Frederick, 1883 to 1940, and Emily Jane Lewis Reppun, 1885 to 1963. The other ensconced the cremated remains of Jean's mother and father, Charles Frederick, 1883 to 1962, and Eliza Jane Stewart Engel, 1885 to 1959. The vault permits the inclusion of only 2 more, the ashes of 2 persons in 1 or in 2 urns. Jean and I wish you all to remember this, our request to have our remains so joined in 1 urn and interred in this same vault with our parents when we come to our proper ends. The vault was then sealed shut, but can be reopened. A simple flat marker of granite was placed to lie over the buried vault. It has been inscribed with the names of our parents as written above. A place remains for the addition of ours. Thus to leave a simple and briefly permanent epitaph showing our honored ancestors from whom we derive ourselves in their image. May we emulate them in their perfection. May our own progenitors have occasion to emulate us. It is appropriate that they rest in the company of many races in a land that has accepted all men as of equal origin. Having come from Europe and the United States of America respectively, they are now at one with Hawaiians, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and Haoles under the green sod. Nearby, in peace, rest many of their friends. J.I. Frederick Reppun, M.D. Oh.
Oh. Thank you, Evan, for bringing it all together at the end. That was great. All right. So thank you, everybody. This has been a blast. So Bink, you'll be the receiver of photos and photos, which you can throw into a slideshow and share with everybody. You could actually do it via just a reply all to the email that I originally sent out about this, and that would be fantastic. And I'll send some of the screenshots that I took during the call today to you as well. It'll be fun.
Sure. And if you guys want to include a short caption for the photo, I'll put that in there too.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
that'd be great.
Thanks
So,
so much, and you know, everybody else, Bink, Jane, everybody who helped to put this together, despite you know everything. Thanks for doing it, and Uncle Josh, thanks for pushing to get it done. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, it was fun. And so to everybody, some of you are already at 10 o'clock or later. Thank you for hanging in there with the call. And Eric, you guys stay safe over there on Volcano, because it's already way dark over there. And so, and Charlie and you guys are getting dark over there too. So thank you, everybody. Let's take one last photo
Hey, Uncle Josh, sorry. I just wanted to, maybe just before we completely sign off, and I know we did that book last Christmas where we had a lot of materials, and there's so much more, and Mom's been finding more stuff as she goes through, and now Bink's going to be, you know, kind of sending out these additional materials, and who knows, maybe by this time next year we'll be able to celebrate 201 years, because you know, odd numbers are great. But oh, sorry, 101. Why am I thinking two? Never mind. Anyway, but you know, we can supplement I guess what we did before with these additional information, like all the additional kind of memories that people have, and so I guess just to keep sharing those, and maybe we can try to figure out what the next draft of that is, and think of all the additional stories we have of you know, all of, I guess,
addendums.
Emily and Carl and Arthur and Eric and Fred and all of their respective descendants. So we can add more to that and all of these materials that we've been looking into.
Great.
For everybody,
All
and
you
for
guys
everybody
on
who
the
wanted to work
mainland, come next summer.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll be okay. We'll get through it. Okay, everybody.
Okay, thanks.
Let's take give me 1 sec. Let me set it up, and then we'll do one last screenshot where everybody's waving. So we want to do this up. Okay. Wait, no, sorry. I miscued it. Hold on.
Aw, little Brianna.
Okay, here we go. Everybody waving. Perfect. Got it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Great to see everybody.
Bye. Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
No, stop.
No stop.
Jane, are you still there? Janie Poo.
Yeah, I'm here.
It's so nice to see your face. Hey, you
Yeah,
know,
you.
what I missed out of this is I really wish I could have heard more about your mom. You know, we heard, I know that it's such a male-dominated line with all the brothers of all the brothers.
But about, yeah, I think, you know, and that's, I think one thing that's interesting about this is, like, I think because there are so many uncles, and because, you know, there's so many of us from the Fred Reppun line, and I think it's interesting too to learn about those other lines and learn about all the other kinds of elements that come into making the family. But I think this is being focused on Reppuns because 100th anniversary of that. But yeah, we're all
agree.
It would be
Etienne,
yeah.
I agree, and I wanted to say thank you for several years ago sending us that picture of Grandma when she was in her 30s, I think. And I look at that; it's still up on our fridge, and I look at it all the time, and I'm like,
it's in our house, Bink.
yeah, it's like one day. The original is there, yeah. So like I'll look at it one day, and I'm like, oh, she looks like Emma, and then the next day I'll look at it, oh wow, she looks like me. Oh wow, looks like Jane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just my connection because I knew her so little. Marilyn, you knew her so much more. Anyway, so it is like we should have one chapter. The next book should have a chapter about the women of the family also.
Yeah. Well, then I think then that becomes like, you know, it's like we have what's bringing us together is the Reppun line, and then all these side stories that kind of come into that. But I did really like hearing that apparently Emily was really great at talking to her 3 big boys and being very stern with them. And that was very satisfying to hear. As one of the few biological women of this family, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you and Emma and Missy.
And Kealohi.
And Kealohi, right, the 4 women. You guys need a chapter.
Okay, I'm gonna end the call here, so you guys are all gonna.
Oh, bye.
Okay.
Bye. See everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Thank
San
you.
Francisco, free room and board. Come visit. You're always welcome.
When we're COVID free.
Yeah, about 30% of my patients have COVID right now.
Oh,
I do obstetrics now, and that's pretty much my life every day in my N95 with my pregnant ladies who have COVID.
Oh, man.
It's rough.
Stay safe, Etienne.
Yeah, it's real.
Take care.
Yeah. We just work through it.
Yeah.
What we do.
I hear that getting a lot of sun is a good thing. So whether or not that's true, I think in general, being active and getting fresh air is not going to do any harm. So it's a good
Well, we tell all our ladies the more you can be outside, the better. And it's just simply because in a closed room, the viral particles are hanging in front of you. So anytime you can have air to blow them out, your risk is so much less. And the COVID-15 is also really true. Our poor pregnant ladies were like, please get out and walk and eat just for one, don't eat for two. And
yeah.
It's been good. Hello, Vivienne. Nice to see your face.
Did Uncle Charlie fall asleep?
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Auntie Lori.
Bye, Auntie Lori.
Bye. Stay
Nice
safe.
to see you from your place, Kialohi.
Bye, everyone. Yeah.
Bye, Auntie Marilyn.
Aloha.
Okay. Are you guys ready?
Oh, Jane, bye.
Okay, bye. I think we're getting ready for dinner.
Have a nice dinner. Bye, you guys.
See you. Bye.